In this video, we'll be breaking down 2 hours of regular show parks lore. Let's get started. The park's origins and mysteries. So here's the thing about the park and regular show. This place has been accumulating weirdness for literal centuries. You've got dimensional barriers that are basically tissue paper, Russian spies running 2-year operations, and literally every single enemy the park workers have ever faced showing up in one massive undead army. The park sits at the center of something way bigger than just a municipal recreation area, with terrible pay and a boss who yells at you for breathing wrong. Think about it. When Mordecai and Rigby accidentally summon a god through a video game, when they rip open portals to other dimensions, when they wake the dead with a cursed movie projector, these things keep happening at this specific location. The park draws chaos like a magnet. So the question becomes, why here? What makes this random patch of ground in the middle of nowhere so cosmically important that the universe keeps throwing apocalypses at it? The answer reveals itself across multiple episodes, each one peeling back another layer. Let's start with the big one. In Exit 9B, we find out the park has been dealing with supernatural threats for years. Garrett Bobby Ferguson, the Destroyer of Worlds, the Halloween Wizard, the Master Prank Caller, the Summertime Song, Clorgbane the Destroyer, the list goes on. At the time, these felt like random Monster of the Week episodes. Just another crazy Monday at work, right? Then this contractor named Garrett Bobby Ferguson Jr. shows up. He's been trying to buy the park for months, and management keeps refusing. Seems like a standard real estate dispute until GBF Jr. reveals he's actually a floating head. Yes, genetics are wild, nursing a very specific grudge. Mordecai and Rigby beat his dad's video game high score back in Season 2, and his dad literally exploded from the shame. Now Junior wants revenge on the entire park. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. GBF Jr. builds an entire freeway called Exit 9B, specifically designed to rip open a portal to the afterlife. When he flips the switch, every villain the park has ever faced comes pouring back through. We're talking about an army of dozens upon dozens of supernatural entities, all of whom have been defeated at this one location. The contractor literally weaponizes the park's accumulated supernatural history. The park workers barely survive. They only win because Skips has connections to cosmic entities called the Guardians of Eternal Youth, because Mordecai rallies everyone with a speech about fighting for what matters, and because Thomas the intern, who literally just started working there, signs the document that legally protects the park as a historical landmark. The portal closes, sucking all the villains back along with the entire freeway. Think about what this episode reveals. The sheer number of world-ending threats that have shown up at this municipal park is statistically impossible unless something about the location itself matters. Every single villain can be summoned back because the park functions as a cosmic crossroads. The accumulation of enemies points to something fundamental about the land. But here's the really wild part. Thomas later turns out to be a Russian spy who's been studying the park's supernatural properties for 2 years. International intelligence agencies consider whatever's happening here important enough to justify deep cover espionage operations. The park holds secrets worth stealing. Exit 9B transforms everything that came before those random monster episodes were all building toward this revelation about the park's true nature as a supernatural battleground. The park's weirdness goes back way further than you'd think. In Skip's story, we find out our immortal Yeti friend has been maintaining this location for over 200 years, and his origin story explains exactly why. Back when Skips was still called Walks, he was just a teenage troublemaker expelled from 3 schools. He meets a girl named Mona at his new high school. She's kind, creative, the first person who sees past his fighting reputation. They fall in love. Walks agrees to fight the school bully Clorgbane the Destroyer to protect the student council. The fight crashes prom night. Clorgbane brings a spiked weapon. When Walks is about to lose, Mona pushes him out of the way, and a piece of the ceiling crushes her. Walks loses the only woman he ever loved. Years later, his friend Gary and the Guardians of Eternal Youth offer him a deal: become immortal and fight Clorgbane when his orbit returns him to Earth 157 years later. Walks accepts, choosing the name Skips to honor how he and Mona used to skip together through school hallways. Here's what matters. Skips didn't randomly end up at this municipal park. He's been here for 200+ years, maintaining supernatural balance. When he tells Mordecai and Rigby, "I've seen worse after the Exit 9B battle destroys everything," he means it literally. 2 centuries of weirdness at this exact location. The Guardians chose Skips specifically because he'd lost everything. Someone with no attachments makes the perfect Guardian. His immortality functions as a curse. He watches everyone around him age and die while he stays frozen at the moment of his greatest tragedy. Every skip reminds him of what he lost. The park becomes his purpose, his penance, his reason to keep existing. But think about the implications. The park's supernatural nature existed centuries before Mordecai and Rigby were born. Skips was assigned here by cosmic entities who recognized this location's significance generations ago. Whatever sits beneath this ground required an immortal guardian to watch over it. The guardians don't make those kinds of assignments lightly. In grave sites, the park needs money for repairs, the cart's busted, the house is falling apart, and Benson casually mentions, "The old cemetery is falling apart." Wait, cemetery? When did the park have a cemetery? The groundskeepers throw a scary movie night in the abandoned graveyard behind the park to raise funds. Everything's going great until Rigby knocks over the projector and accidentally zaps the ground with supernatural energy from the cursed film. Zombies start rising everywhere. The whole park erupts into chaos as the undead attack the audience. Here's the detail everyone misses. The park is built directly over a massive cemetery. We're talking hundreds of graves, old enough that nobody remembers they're there. Nobody talks about them. Benson mentions them like they're just another maintenance problem, not a literal field of corpses sitting under the employee housing. One of those graves belongs to Garrett Bobby Ferguson, Sr., the same villain whose son later builds Exit 9B to resurrect everyone. GBF Sr. was buried at the park after he exploded from shame. His spirit haunts the grounds, waiting to return. Think about what that means. The park buries its supernatural casualties on site. When you defeat a cosmic entity at this location, the body goes in the ground and the spirit lingers. The cemetery functions as evidence, physical proof this land has been accumulating supernatural deaths for generations. The existence of previous groundskeeper graves suggests people have been maintaining this property for a very long time. Each gravestone represents someone who died fighting to keep whatever's happening here contained. Mordecai and Rigby are just the latest in a long line of defenders who have no idea they're part of something bigger. But here's where it gets really interesting. Disturbing the grounds summons supernatural consequences. The movie projector's energy reanimates entire sections of the cemetery at once. The land remembers. The dead are listening. Something about this specific location makes resurrection easier here than anywhere else. Halloween at the park brings out the worst kinds of weird. The Terror Tales episodes frame themselves as the workers telling scary stories to each other. But here's the thing, they're not making these up. They're sharing actual supernatural incidents they've experienced at their workplace. Pops tells about a possessed doll that drew on people's faces and tried to kill everyone. Muscle Man shares the story of a cursed RV that belonged to a dead band whose ghosts tried to drive him into a crash pit. Rigby recounts being transformed into an actual house by a wizard who then systematically murdered everyone inside him. These aren't campfire tales, they're workplace hazards documented in the HR file under reasons we can't keep insurance. Each Terror Tales episode reveals another layer. Season 3 gives us the possessed doll, the ghost band, and the house transformation. Season 4 adds more. Season 5 piles on additional incidents. By Season 6, the anthology format has documented literally dozens of supernatural encounters at this one municipal park. Think about what that establishes. The park consistently functions as a hotspot for paranormal activity. These aren't isolated incidents spread across decades. They're condensed into specific time frames, suggesting whatever supernatural energy exists here reaches peaks during certain periods. Halloween seems to amplify whatever makes the park special. The regular employees have personal horror stories from their jobs. Mordecai can describe multiple times he's been genuinely terrified at work. Rigby has been killed and resurrected so many times he's casual about it. Muscle Man has fought ghosts, demons, and interdimensional beings as part of his regular duties. They sit around swapping these stories, like war veterans, sharing combat experiences. That level of desensitization only comes from prolonged exposure to cosmic horror. But here's what makes these episodes genuinely unsettling. They're formatted as fun anthology stories when they're actually documenting a workplace where employees regularly face death from paranormal sources. The park staff treats dimensional rifts like annoying paperwork. The park has broken their sense of what constitutes normal reality. In The Real Thomas, we meet what appears to be the most normal person at the park. Thomas is quiet, helpful, rarely says more than a few words, and does his job without complaining. Classic intern behavior. Everyone likes him enough that Benson plans to offer him a full-time position on his last day. Then Rigby catches Thomas fighting a guy dressed like a garbage can in the middle of the night. Thomas speaks in a Russian accent, demonstrates advanced martial arts, and knocks the intruder unconscious. When Rigby confronts him, Thomas gaslights him into thinking it was a dream, then hides the CIA agent's body in a kitchen cupboard. You know, normal intern stuff. The truth explodes when Rigby finds Russian writing on the park's sprinkler system. Thomas reveals himself as Nikolai, a Russian spy working for OMM, the Ministry of Meadow Management, a KGB agency dedicated to park research and espionage. He's been embedded at the park for 2 years studying what makes American parks successful. His cover as a boring intern was perfect because nobody suspects the intern. Everyone underestimates them. Here's where your brain should be melting. International intelligence agencies consider this location significant enough to justify a 2-year deep cover operation. Nikolai wasn't randomly assigned to infiltrate any park, he specifically targeted this one. The Russian government knows something's happening here and wants to understand it. Nikolai's mission involves installing equipment throughout the park and documenting supernatural events. He's been gathering intelligence during every weird incident, cataloging supernatural properties, transmitting data back to Russia. When he activates his equipment, the entire park transforms into a flying fortress covered in Russian architecture and heads toward Moscow. Foreign governments literally try to steal the land itself, because whatever makes this location special is that valuable. Think about the scale of that. The park matters on a global strategic level. Whatever Skips has been protecting for 200 years, whatever sits beneath the cemetery, whatever makes this a supernatural nexus, it's important enough that nations want to control it. Worth killing for. Worth risking international incidents over. Thomas's betrayal stings because he genuinely did bond with the crew. When he chooses to save them instead of completing his mission, he becomes a traitor to both countries. The park made him care about something more than duty or national loyalty. The location transformed him from a perfect weapon into someone capable of friendship. In Diary, Mordecai and Rigby accidentally break Margaret's diary lock while watering her plants. The episode plays as comedy about secrets and guilt, but there's a moment that reveals something crucial about the park's history. Skips agrees to help transfer the diary's contents to a new book using a magic quill. He casually mentions this has to be done at the location where the diary was broken. He explains that secrets are serious business, that they must be protected at all costs, and that the boys need to take this seriously because secrets are a force to be reckoned with. The magic quill transfers Margaret's secrets, but the process summons a giant flaming guardian who tries to destroy everyone unless they confess their own meaningful secrets. Skips goes first, revealing why he always skips. In all my life, my heart yearned for only one woman. We used to skip together all the time. On the day I lost her, I vowed to skip every day for the rest of my life, so I'd never forget the time we spent together. But here's what matters. After forcing Skips to confess his deepest truth, he immediately tells Mordecai and Rigby, "You don't remember that." He wipes their memory of the confession. Skips maintains operational security about why he's really at the park. Think about what that implies. Skips has documented centuries of supernatural events in his own records. He keeps documentation. The episode confirms the location has always been this way, going back generations. The land itself attracts interdimensional chaos because of something fundamental about the ground. Skips chose to stay at this specific location for a reason connected to his greater purpose, assigned here by cosmic entities who recognized its significance long before the current crew showed up. The park required an immortal guardian because whatever's happening here needs constant vigilance across centuries. Some secrets are too dangerous to share, even with friends who fight beside you every day. So let's pull this together. Exit 9B shows the park accumulating supernatural enemies who can all be summoned back from the dead at this specific location. Skip's story reveals he's been maintaining the site for 200 plus years after cosmic entities assigned him here. Grave Sites uncovers a massive cemetery sitting directly beneath the park grounds. Terror Tales documents consistent paranormal activity concentrated at this location. The Real Thomas exposes international espionage targeting the park's supernatural properties. Diary confirms Skips has been protecting secrets about the park's true purpose for centuries. The park sits at a dimensional nexus where barriers between realities wear thin. The cemetery underneath amplifies supernatural energy by creating a connection to the afterlife. International governments monitor the park because they recognize its strategic importance. The accumulation of threats indicates the land itself draws chaos. Here's the really wild part. The park's significance predates its current form. Before it was a municipal recreation area, it was something else. Before that, something else again. Skips has watched the surface change while the fundamental nature remained constant. The land itself matters on a cosmic scale. This explains why so many apocalyptic scenarios play out at a random municipal park. The location functions as a cosmic crossroads where supernatural forces naturally converge. Mordecai and Rigby don't summon weird stuff because they're careless slackers. They work at a location where reality's veil is paper thin. Every rip they tear happens easily because reality is already fragile here. The park's employees serve as guardians whether they realize it or not. Each time they defeat a supernatural threat, they're maintaining the balance Skips has protected for centuries. Everyone working here has been conscripted into a war they didn't know they were fighting. Now let's look at the people who ended up working at this cosmic battleground, starting with the two slackers who have no idea what they've gotten themselves into. Part 2. Main Character Backstories. In the pilot, Mordecai and Rigby are already best friends working at the park together. Right from the start, you see the dynamic Mordecai's the responsible one, who complains about Rigby's schemes but goes along with them anyway. They play rock, paper, scissors over a chair for so long it creates an interdimensional portal. Mordecai keeps saying they should stop. He never actually stops them. That's Mordecai in a nutshell. He sees the problem coming. He warns everyone about the problem. Then he helps create the problem anyway because he's too loyal to walk away. In Mordecai and the Rigbys, we learn they had a band in high school. Rigby couldn't play any instruments. Mordecai included him in the band anyway because that's what best friends do. When they get a chance to perform at an open mic night, Rigby orders t-shirts with Mordecai and the Rigbys printed on them, basically making Mordecai the lead and himself the backup. Mordecai complains but wears the shirt. The performance becomes a disaster because Rigby can't actually play. But here's what matters. Mordecai knew Rigby couldn't play. He agreed to the performance anyway. That pattern of loyalty, even when it hurts him, that's going to define his entire arc. In The Power, we find out how they even got hired in the first place. They find this magical keyboard that grants wishes when you perform with it. They use it to get raises, summon bouncy castles, and accidentally send Skips to the moon. The keyboard turns out to belong to a wizard, and Skips has to save them from a monster. Benson's furious, but doesn't fire them. Think about what this reveals. Mordecai and Rigby got this job because of a magical keyboard. It was supposed to be temporary, just a summer gig or whatever. Years later, they're still there because neither of them pushed to leave. Mordecai keeps saying, "We should probably look for better jobs," but never follows through. He's comfortable with settling. Then we get to Margaret. In Caffeinated Concert Tickets, Mordecai develops a crush on the coffee shop barista. He wants to impress her, so he and Rigby work overtime to afford concert tickets. They work so hard, they start drinking dangerous amounts of coffee and hallucinate a giant coffee bean. They make it to the concert, but immediately fall asleep from exhaustion. This becomes Mordecai's romantic pattern for literally years. He tries to do something special. Chaos interrupts. He chickens out at the last second. Rinse and repeat. In Just Friends, several seasons later, Mordecai and Margaret go on a not date because they're both trying to figure out if they want to be together. A chef shows them a vision of their future marriage, kids, growing old together. Margaret's overwhelmed. Mordecai realizes he's not ready either. They agree to be just friends. Here's the thing that kills me about Mordecai. He's not a coward in the traditional sense. He fights demons, saves the universe, stands up to supernatural threats. But emotional vulnerability? That's his kryptonite. He waits for the perfect moment to tell Margaret how he feels. The perfect moment never comes. Or it does come, and he freezes. By the time he's finally ready, she's moved on. In Stake Me Amadeus, Mordecai plans this elaborate fancy dinner to officially ask Margaret to be his girlfriend. He's worked overtime for weeks to afford it. Everything's set up perfectly. Then it turns into a massive shootout with a robot bear because Pops accidentally bought counterfeit restaurant coupons from the mafia. During the chaos, Margaret reveals she's moving away for college. She can't be Mordecai's girlfriend because she's leaving. Mordecai gets one perfect shot, and the universe literally explodes around him. That's his entire romantic arc summarized. So he starts dating CJ instead. For a while it works, but Margaret comes back from college, and suddenly Mordecai's caught between two people he cares about. He handles it in the absolute worst way possible. In Dumped at the Altar, Mordecai's at Muscleman's wedding. CJ's his date. Margaret's there with her new boyfriend Dell. Mordecai spends the whole wedding panicking about being in the same room with both of them. Then Muscleman's dad's letter says, "Trust your gut," and Mordecai has a breakdown. He goes up to the microphone and announces he doesn't know who his soulmate is. Maybe it's Margaret. Maybe it's that really old lady. He points at random people in the audience like he's selecting lottery numbers. CJ gets up and leaves. Margaret's horrified. Everyone's uncomfortable. Muscleman's furious that Mordecai hijacked his wedding to have a meltdown about his own romantic indecision. It's Mordecai, at his absolute worst years of overthinking and refusing to commit, finally hurting everyone around him. But here's where it gets interesting. In 1000th Chopper Flight Party, after CJ dumps him, Mordecai starts actually working on himself. He goes to Margaret's dad's party and tries to avoid her to respect CJ's feelings. When circumstances force them together, he's honest, yeah, it's weird, but he's trying to do the right thing. No more playing both sides. No more waiting for the universe to decide for him. The finale shows us where everyone ends up 25 years later. Mordecai's at an art convention signing autographs for his paintings. He bumps into another artist, a Batwoman named Steph. They lock eyes, flash forward, and they're married with kids at the park reunion. Notice what happened? Mordecai stopped overthinking. He met someone naturally, at an art show doing what he loves. No elaborate schemes, no cosmic interference, no love triangles. He grew up, worked on himself, and found someone when he wasn't trying to force it. The show's basically saying Mordecai spent 7 years self-sabotaging because he was terrified of making the wrong choice. His happy ending came from making a choice and sticking with it. Any choice, just pick something and commit. Now let's talk about his best friend, who has the opposite problem. Rigby commits to everything immediately without thinking it through first. In Dawn, we meet Rigby's younger brother, who's taller than him, more successful than him, and somehow everyone's favorite person. The episode flashes back to Rigby's 6th birthday party, where all his friends, including Mordecai, ditch him to hang out with Dawn instead. That's Rigby's entire childhood, living in the shadow of a brother who's better at literally everything. The show keeps coming back to this. Rigby's dad constantly compares them. Dawn's an accountant with a nice car and a huge house. Rigby's a groundskeeper who can't even graduate high school. Every time Dawn shows up, Rigby gets reminded that he's the family disappointment. But here's what makes Rigby interesting. He created most of his own problems trying to escape that shadow. In Bankshot, Rigby's dominating everyone at this basketball game at Wing Kingdom. He's genuinely incredible at it. Then he bets everything against this guy named Cash Bankus and loses. Suddenly, Rigby can't make a single shot. His confidence is completely gone. He calls Dawn for help. Dawn teaches him the same lesson Rigby already knew. Trust your gut, stop overthinking. Rigby wins the rematch. The thing is, Rigby has talent. Real talent. He could accomplish incredible things if he actually tried. But he's so convinced he's going to fail that he sabotages himself before anyone else can. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Which brings us to the biggest reveal in the entire show. In the regular show movie, we learn what really happened with college. Rigby didn't get accepted to college university. Mordecai did. So Rigby forged Mordecai's rejection letter and replaced it with a fake one. He kept Mordecai from going to college because he couldn't stand the idea of being separated from his best friend. When Mordecai finds out, he's furious. He tells Rigby he's the reason Mordecai's stuck in a dead-end job, that Rigby's not his friend, all he's ever done is hold him back. It's brutal. The crazy thing? Rigby was right to be scared. Mordecai would have gone to college, probably would have become successful, and they probably would have drifted apart. But that doesn't make what Rigby did okay. He stole Mordecai's future because he was too insecure to face his own. That's Rigby's whole arc: insecurity and selfishness disguised as loyalty. But then something shifts. In the Thanksgiving special, Principal Dean tells Rigby and Mordecai they're expelled from high school after they blow up the science lab. Past Rigby never graduated. Years later, present-day Rigby decides to go back and get his diploma. He studies, he takes tests. He actually works hard for maybe the first time in his life. When he finally graduates, it's a genuine achievement, not something he lucked into or lied his way through. He earned it. That's when the show starts letting Rigby grow. In Eileen Flatscreen, Rigby wins a TV for Eileen at a dance competition and decides to install it as a surprise. He's being thoughtful, considerate. The whole episode he's doing nice things for her without expecting anything in return. When Eileen's terrible roommate tries to destroy the TV, Rigby risks his life to save it. What's interesting is Eileen never changed herself to impress Rigby. She didn't try to be cooler or more interesting. They just liked hanging out together. No games, no schemes. Just two people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. That's the beginning of Rigby's first healthy relationship. In Lift With Your Back, Rigby quits his job after a fight with Mordecai about always being taken for granted. He gets a job at a moving company and nearly destroys his back, trying to prove he's useful. Mordecai shows up to help him. They try to move a couch, but can't do it while they're fighting. The second they work together, it's effortless. That's the friendship in a nutshell. Separately, they're a mess. Together, they're unstoppable. The series ends with Married and Broke, where we see everyone 25 years later. Rigby's married to Eileen. They have 2 daughters. He's a successful artist who travels to conventions and signs autographs for his paintings. The kid who couldn't graduate high school found his passion, believed in himself, and built a life he actually wanted. Not in Don's shadow, not riding Mordecai's coattails. Just Rigby, being Rigby, and finally being okay with that. The show's message is pretty clear. Rigby spent years lying and taking shortcuts because he was terrified of failing. His happy ending came from finally putting in the work. From being honest. From growing up. He earned it the hard way. Now let's talk about the guy they work for, who spends 7 years one bad decision away from firing them both. In Stick Hockey, Mordecai and Rigby find an old game in the garage, and Benson immediately tells them to get rid of it. He calls it a waste of time. They beg to keep it, so he makes a deal: finish all your work, you can have the game. They actually do the work. Then Benson throws the game away anyway. When they confront him, he admits he already donated it to a thrift store. The guys are furious. Benson broke his word. They spend the episode tracking down the game through various thrift shops until they end up at an underground stick hockey arena where a guy named Chong is about to decapitate them. Then Benson shows up. Chong recognizes him immediately, calls him Death Dragon. Flashback reveals that Benson used to be a champion stick hockey player. He had a pupil named Dave who he was training. They made it to the finals together. Dave went up against Chong. Chong cut off Dave's head with the sticks. Benson held Dave's decapitated head as he died, screaming into the void. That's why Benson threw the game away. He wasn't being petty. He was trying to protect Mordecai and Rigby from the same fate. After Benson defeats Chong and saves them, he fixes up the stick hockey table in the garage. Mordecai and Rigby thank him. Then Benson says the line that explains everything. "I guess I just didn't want to see you end up like me. Some dried-up loser stuck working at a park because he wasted his life playing stick hockey." That's Benson. He had dreams. He was passionate about something. He was good at it. Then it cost him someone he cared about, so he gave it all up for a stable, boring job managing a park. He sacrificed his passion for security. In Benson Be Gone, that security gets taken away. Mordecai crashes Mr. Maillard's limo into his office twice. Maillard calls an emergency meeting and demotes Benson on the spot. Brings in a new manager named Susan. Raking leaves with Mordecai and Rigby. He's devastated. This is humiliating. He can't handle it. Mordecai and Rigby try to cheer him up by teaching him how to slack off. At first he resists, but eventually he joins in. They play video games, eat pizza, destroy property, ride the golf cart through the grass. Benson's having the time of his life. Then Susan shows up and demands they get back to work. Mordecai and Rigby immediately comply. But Benson, he refuses. He tells Susan he's wasted his whole life at a dead-end job, and he's not wasting another second. He dares her to fire him. She does. Benson celebrates. He's free! No more job, no more stress, no more responsibility. He sits on a park bench, enjoying his newfound freedom. Then he meets Leon, a homeless guy who used to be the park manager. Leon gave up his job for a life of slacking, and now he lives in the garbage, eats trash, and sleeps on compost heaps. Benson realizes he's looking at his future. He sprints back to the park and begs for his job back. But Susan's already transformed Mordecai and Rigby into clones of herself by overworking them. Benson fights back by ordering everyone to slack off, which breaks Susan's control. She turns into a giant monster. Mr. Maillard tells Benson he can have his job back if he defeats her. Benson does. Leon sacrifices himself driving the limo into Susan, causing her to fall into a pit. Benson gets his job back. As he drives away in the golf cart, watching Mordecai and Rigby in the rearview mirror, he says, "It's good to be back." The park manager job is Benson's entire identity. It's all he has. He gave up music, gave up stick hockey, gave up everything he loved for this stable position. And he's terrified of losing it, because without it, he's nothing. That's why he's so angry all the time. Every time Mordecai and Rigby mess up, they're threatening the one thing Benson has left. They're constantly putting his job in jeopardy, which means they're constantly putting his entire sense of self in jeopardy. He's not mad because they're lazy. He's mad because he's scared. Now let's talk about the guy who's been alive for hundreds of years and still shows up to work every day. In Meet the Seer, Pops is dying. Auntie Pops nearly erased him from existence in their last fight. The crew gets him to the Seer, this all-knowing being who watches every universe on monitors. When Muscle Man tries to act tough, the Seer does his own joke format back at him. "You know who else is always so brash? My mom." Then she proves she really has been watching by playing clips from their lives. Episodes from across the entire series. She talks about how the show started strong, how Mordecai's relationship with Margaret made things level off, how she was always more of a CJ fan. She mentions the rating spikes during Halloween episodes, and how Rigby's graduation special helped viewership. It's surreal and meta and completely breaks the fourth wall. The Seer watches universes like their TV shows. She's literally a Nielsen ratings box given sentient form. Then she drops the bomb. The universe is going to end. It's the natural order of things. She reveals the truth about Pops. He was created as the ultimate being. The universe spent billions of years making different versions until it got him right Megachronus. But when you create ultimate good, the universe has to balance itself. So it also created Malum Cranus, Anti-Pops. They're twins, destined to fight every 14 billion years. They battle, their fists collide, and the universe resets. It's happened over and over. The tapestries on their home planet, Lollyland, show the pattern repeating endlessly. Different weapons, different eras, always the same ending. Mutual destruction. Reset. The cycle never breaks. Pops asks desperately if there's another way. The seer says, sometimes doing something different makes all the difference. But then again, everybody loves reruns. In a regular epic final battle, everyone dies. The crew sets up traps, catapults, spikes, missiles, everything. They drop it all on Antipops in a massive explosion. For a moment, they think they've won. Then Antipops floats out of the wreckage, laughing. That tickled. He offers Pops a gentlemanly deal, one-on-one fight. If Pops knocks him down, Universe is safe. If Antipops wins, everything ends. Pops agrees. They fight. Finally, Pops knocks Antipops to the ground. Everyone celebrates. But Antipops cheated. He orders his bounty hunters to fire on everyone. Kicks Pops while he's trying to make peace, then transforms into his Titan form massive, cosmic-sized, and starts erasing people from existence with his beam. Muscle Man and High Five Ghost try to run. The beam catches them. Muscle Man's last words. You know who else grows really big to show their dominance, but is actually really small deep down? My mom! They high-five as they're erased. Then the others. Chance Sure Shot, Toothpick Sally. Recap Robot. The Guardians of Eternal Youth, Gary, Death, Carter, and Briggs. Party Horse. The Baby Ducks form Hyperduck to fight, but get erased. Skips and Eileen scream as they disappear. Then Benson. Mordecai and Rigby watch their friends die, one by one from their spaceships. Pops is desperately trying to protect Lollyland with his powers, but Antipops is too strong. Then Pops and Antipops charge at each other, fists closed, heading for the collision that will reset everything. Mordecai realizes what's about to happen the exact same ending from the tapestries. He tries to fly his ship between them to stop it. Rigby tries to eject, but the button malfunctions. They collide anyway. Mordecai and Rigby get erased. The universe resets. Except it glitches. Mordecai and Rigby wake up at the beginning, the first episode, The Power. They're wrestling the beef burrito doll. Mid-throw, Rigby gets déjà vu. He remembers everything. They dig up a Blu-ray box set that contains their entire future and use the power to travel back to the fight. They appear between Pops and Antipops. Antipops blasts them. The power shatters. They fall back to the destroyed remains of Lollyland, screaming for Pops to help them. Pops chases Antipops through the collapsing fabric of reality. They fly past the show's production materials, sticky notes with character sketches, storyboards, the logo, spelling regular show. The universe is literally falling apart into its component pieces. Antipops is about to erase Mordecai and Rigby permanently. Then Pops remembers. The seer said to do something different. He remembers telling Antipops, "We can still resolve this, brother." Remembers an earlier episode where Antipops angrily said he didn't need a hug. Pops spreads his arms wide and flies toward Antipops. Not to fight, to embrace him. He hugs his brother. Antipops shrinks back to normal size, overwhelmed by the positive feelings. His face contorts. He's experiencing emotions other than rage for the first time in billions of years. He says the moment Pops lets go, he'll blast him into nothing. Pops smiles sadly. I know, so I'm not going to let go. Antipops realizes they're heading toward the sun. Screams that Pops will kill them both. Pops telepathically connects with Mordecai and Rigby one last time. Don't worry, I know you're sad, but I promise this is a happy ending. Take care of each other. Goodbye. As they fly into the sun, Pop's hat disintegrates. Antipops' negativity fades. He finally feels remorse. Looks at his hands, horrified. All those one-star reviews. I wish I could take it all back. Pops. You can try. You and I together, brother. They close their eyes, share one final hug as brothers, finally at peace. They fly into the sun together. Both of them die. The screen goes white. Then everyone who was erased comes back. The universe doesn't reset, it continues. Pops broke the cycle by choosing love over violence, sacrifice over stalemate. 3 years later, The park dome returns to Earth. Massive crowds celebrate. Mordecai's parents embrace him. Rigby's dad proudly points at him to the crowd. Starla reveals Muscle Man's 3-year-old daughter she was pregnant when they left. Skips reunites with Tecmo. High Five Ghost spins Celia around. Rigby dips and kisses Eileen. Mordecai looks over at Mr. Maillard, who's staring at the sky, wiping tears away with a handkerchief, mourning his son. They hold a funeral, put up a statue. The plaque reads, "He chased butterflies. He loved to laugh. He saved the universe. He was our friend." Pops Maillard. Mordecai and Rigby quit their jobs and go their separate ways. The epilogue shows them across 25 years. Mordecai becomes an artist, eventually meets a woman named Steph at an art convention. Rigby and Eileen get married, have 2 daughters. Benson gets back with Pam. Muscle Man and Starla have 6 kids total. High Five Ghost and Celia move to Prague and become DJs. At the 25-year reunion, everyone's there with their families. Mordecai and Rigby, now with beards and glasses, sit on the house steps drinking sodas, wondering if Pops can see this. Rigby says he's the reason they have any of it. They walk off together. Camera zooms out. The screen turns to static, revealing a TV in heaven surrounded by butterflies. A VHS tape labeled "Regular Show Ejects." Pops' voice, one final time. Jolly good show. Skips is immortal. In Skips in the Saddle, we find out why that's actually tragic. Everyone's making plans. Muscle Man and High Five Ghost are taking their girlfriends to Mexican wrestling. Benson's going to a jazz concert with Audrey. Rigby's hanging with Eileen. Mordecai invites Skips to tag along with him and CJ, but Skips declines. Says he's got other guys coming over for cards. Cut to Skips' house. He walks in alone. The card table is set up for multiple people with snacks laid out. He sighs, puts the food away, plays solitaire, lifts weights alone, eats sardines from the can, watches romantic comedies in the dark. On TV, a couple laughs. The woman jokes, probably home alone watching a romantic comedy in the dark. Both laugh. Skips groans. Next day, Mordecai and Rigby find him sitting outside, staring into space. He admits he's been skipping solo for too long. Needs to start dating again. Rigby asks how long it's been. 200 years. They become his wingmen. Call up his immortal friends Gary, Tecmo, Reginald, and hit a club. Gary and Tecmo walk up to 2 women, do some smooth talk and magic tricks, walk off with them immediately. Reginald spots 2 women looking at them. They approach. Reginald uses a pickup line, then nudges Skips. Skips stammers about liking the woman's outfit because it looks comfortable. She asks what he likes about it. Skips, panicking, sees Reginald's adult diaper and blurts out, "Like my friend's diaper." The woman explodes, smashes a plate, storms off. Mordecai and Rigby set up an online dating profile. Call him Skipster. Change groundskeeper to environmental technologist. Add that he can fix anything, including broken hearts. Mention he's fought monsters, arm wrestled death, loves kittens. Within seconds, 85,000 views. Front page of the website. Selected to be on It's a Date. They give him a makeover. New suit, spray tan, haircut. Then prep him for questions. When asked what he'd bring to a desert island, Skip says, fresh water. Rigby makes a buzzer sound. Wrong. You have to say something like, all I need is your deep blue eyes. Cheese it up. They argue. If Rigby's so good at this, why doesn't he do it? Mordecai gets an idea. At the show, Skips appears as a ventriloquist with Rigby as his dummy, Lil Riggs. Rigby feeds him all the smooth lines. When asked where he'd take the Bachelorette, Skip says, go out for a nice meal, but Rigby adds, and to the planetarium, 'cause you belong with all the other heavenly bodies. The audience oohs. It works. Then the other contestants get jealous. The t-shirt man pulls out a gun that shoots t-shirts. Jimmy Jams, a guy with a horse body, starts destroying the set. Stage lights fall. Skips catches one, holds up a collapsing pillar to save the Bachelorette Sheena. His suit rips off. He grabs the mic, confesses everything. He's not a ventriloquist, just a simple guy who works at a park. A quiet guy who wants someone to talk to. Someone who doesn't mind that he likes to go commando. Skips drops the mic and starts to leave. Wait! I choose Bachelor Hash 3. She chooses him anyway. They win a trip to Costa Rica. When Skips gets back, Rigby asks how it went. Skips says she was too high maintenance. The flashback shows him constantly saving her from disasters, exactly like he does for everyone at the park. But I'm back in the saddle, Skips says. Here's what the episode doesn't explicitly say. Skips has been alone for 200 years because he lost someone. Other episodes reveal her name was Mona. He became immortal specifically to be with her, made a deal, paid a price. But she died anyway. That's the cost of immortality. You watch everyone else disappear. Your friends age and die. The person you loved enough to become immortal for is gone. And you're still here, lifting weights alone, eating sardines from the can, playing solitaire, watching romantic comedies in the dark, for 200 years. The sad thing about Skips trying to get back in the saddle is that even if he finds someone, she'll eventually die too. That's why it's been 200 years. Not because he couldn't find anyone, because what's the point? Now let's talk about the guy who was one sentence away from a heart attack for 8 seasons straight. Muscleman, real name Mitch Sorenstein, is the park's most annoying employee. He makes "my mom" jokes constantly, pulls elaborate pranks, and refuses to wear a shirt. But in Muscle Woman, we see what happens when his girlfriend Starla dumps him. He completely falls apart, can't work, sits naked in the shower crying for hours, claiming it's just the sound of water hitting the drain. Benson makes Mordecai and Rigby do all his work, digging out rotting stumps, fighting the guy who thinks he's a knight, maintaining the rock garden. They realize Muscleman's actually responsible for way more than they thought. They try to fix it by getting him back together with Starla. Mordecai gives this whole speech about how we're all fragile beings, looking for someone to share something with, to laugh with, to love. Starla doesn't hear a word, she just sees Mordecai looking handsome and falls for him instead. Rigby convinces Mordecai to date her, then dump her so she'll run back to Muscleman. It works. Sort of. When Mordecai dumps her, Starla transforms into a giant kaiju monster and destroys half the park. Muscleman finally opens up about his feelings, calls himself by his real name, tells her she's the light of his life. They get back together. The key line: "I've never heard you talk about your feelings before." In Trucker Hall of Fame, Muscleman's father dies. Muscle Dad was supposedly this legendary trucker. At the funeral, Muscleman holds up his dad's world's greatest trucker hat and vows to spread its ashes at the Trucker Hall of Fame as his final Father's Day tribute. But on the road trip, they meet other truckers who reveal the truth. Muscle Dad was never a trucker. He was a forklift driver. The hat was fake. The radio calls from the road. Muscle Dad was hiding behind a bush in the playground the whole time, pretending. Muscle Man finds a note in the broken picture frame. His dad explains he lied because the world is harsh and he wanted to toughen Muscle Man up. Asks him to spread the hat ashes anyway as a final prank on the stuck-up truckers who looked down on him. Muscle Man does it. When guards try to stop him, he says, "My old man was a screw-up. And let's face it, so am I. I'm overweight, I work in a lame park, and you 2 and 5s are my only friends." But the one thing a Sorenstein almost never screws up is a prank. Muscle Dad's ghost appears in a forklift. Thanks Muscle Man for honoring his wish. Apologizes for lying. Muscle Man forgives him. As they drive away, Muscle Man tells the sleeping Mordecai and Rigby, "Pranks and insults are just how my old man taught me to show it." That's Muscle Man. His "my mom" jokes and elaborate pranks is his love language. It's the only way he knows how to connect. High Five Ghost doesn't get much spotlight, but that's kind of the point. He's Muscle Man's best friend and constant sidekick. Where Muscle Man is loud and obnoxious, Fives is quiet and supportive. He's just always there. In See You There, it's his birthday party. Muscle Man throws him an elaborate costume party, but it's actually an elaborate prank to get back at Mordecai and Rigby for spilling soda in his face. The entire party, including bailing Fives' brother out of jail to turn them into ghosts, was staged revenge. The thing is, High Five Ghost goes along with it. His birthday party becomes a vehicle for Muscle Man's prank, and he doesn't complain. That's their friendship. Muscle Man takes center stage. Fives supports from the sidelines. When Muscle Man's girlfriend dumps him in Muscle Woman, Benson can't send Fives to help because High Five Ghost doesn't deal well with this sort of thing. He's shown crying through a window. When Muscle Man's father dies in Trucker Hall of Fame, Fives isn't on the road trip to spread the ashes. High Five Ghost is loyal to a fault. He'll help with any prank, support any scheme, go along with any plan, even when it means his own birthday party becomes about someone else. He's the friend who shows up, doesn't ask for credit, just stays. In the finale, when Anti-Pops erases Muscle Man, Fives is erased right alongside him. They high-five one last time before disappearing. 25 years later, in the epilogue, Fives and his girlfriend Celia are living in Prague, working as DJs. He finally got his own story. But for most of the show, he was just there for his best friend. That's High Five Ghost, the ultimate sidekick. Proof that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the most loyal. If you're enjoying the video so far, subscribe to our channel. Part 3. The Park as a Workplace. In Just Set Up the Chairs, Benson asks Mordecai and Rigby to set up chairs for a birthday party. 2 chairs. That's it. That's the entire assignment. They don't want to do it, so they play rock, paper, scissors to decide who has to set them up. They tie again, keep tying. Rigby suggests best of 3, then best of 5, best of 1001. Meanwhile, Benson's stuck in traffic driving a school bus full of screaming children. The birthday kid tells him to just drive the bus. You crazy slop jockey. Muscle Man and High Five Ghost pick up the special entertainment, a depressed clown and a pony who live in a dark apartment surrounded by empty cans. And Mordecai and Rigby are still playing rock, paper, scissors. They play so many times they summon an ancient wizard who created the game. He's furious they've been abusing it and possesses their hands, forcing them to keep playing forever. The hands become giant and start fighting each other, destroying the park. Buildings explode. The ground cracks open. A massive supernatural battle tears through the property. Benson shows up and demands they set up the chairs. Mordecai and Rigby finally agree to just do the work. The wizard releases them. They set up 2 chairs. But wait, there are supposed to be 50 chairs. They only found 38. They search for the missing chairs and discover a room full of abandoned arcade games. They start playing. Mordecai wins every game, while Rigby just mashes buttons. Then they find one covered with a sheet, Destroyer of Worlds. There's a note attached to a wire inside. In the name of all that is holy, don't connect the red wire to the blue wire. Rigby connects the wires. A pixelated demon head emerges from the machine and starts firing laser beams across the park, causing mass destruction. Pops floats by on balloons and cheerfully asks, "Who unleashed the Destroyer of Worlds?" Good show. The special entertainment gets vaporized. The bouncy castle catches fire. Kids are screaming everywhere. Skips shows up with 3 more arcade machines and creates a giant hodgepodge monster, the Lemon Chef, to fight the Destroyer. Mordecai and Rigby control it like a video game. Rigby mashes the buttons, making the Lemon Chef spin in circles and fire randomly. Mordecai yells at him to stop messing up the legs. They somehow defeat the Destroyer by button mashing it to death. The park is now a volcanic wasteland, but the chairs? They're set up, all 50 of them. The kids are sitting on them, surrounded by flames, cheering about how hot this birthday party is. Muscle Man swings his shirt. Benson is red with rage, but technically can't complain because the chairs are set up. This is the show's entire premise in one episode. The simplest possible task becomes an apocalyptic nightmare because Mordecai and Rigby would rather summon ancient demons than do 5 minutes of work. And here's the thing, it's not an outlier. This happens every episode. Benson asks for something reasonable. They try to avoid it. Supernatural chaos erupts. Somehow the task gets done anyway. The show is about how much effort people will put into avoiding effort. They'll traverse dimensions, make deals with wizards, risk death, destroy property worth thousands of dollars, anything except just do the job. And they usually win. They defeat the wizard. The park gets rebuilt. Benson keeps them employed. Consequences don't stick. In The Unicorns Have Got to Go, we find out why this dysfunction is permanent. They can't afford to fix it. Mordecai buys cologne called Dude Time to attract Margaret. It doesn't attract Margaret. It attracts 7 unicorns who emerge from the bushes chanting, "Bros, bros, bros." They're obsessed with the cologne because it's meant for hanging out with bros, not getting ladies. Rigby immediately loves them. Mordecai just wants help with Margaret. The unicorns promise to help. First, they make Mordecai drink from the cup of knowledge, which is definitely not unicorn slomp. Then they tell him to slick his hair back with a mysterious liquid and lay it down on Margaret. Mordecai walks into the coffee shop looking ridiculous and stammers, "I'm here to lay it down." Margaret asks if he's feeling okay. The unicorns are watching through the window, laughing. Then they throw a massive party at Mordecai and Rigby's house. They trash everything, break furniture, clog toilets, smash a TV through the window. One of them finds Rigby's bed and uses it as a trampoline until his horn rips it to shreds. They find Benson tied up in the closet they've kidnapped and gagged the boss. The unicorns spray Rigby with soda, fart on him repeatedly, and treat him like garbage while chanting "bros." Rigby finally realizes his new friends are terrible. He goes outside to apologize to Mordecai. They reconcile. Then they go to Skips, who immediately asks, "Unicorns?" Turns out they peed on his lawn. Skips explains how to get rid of unicorns. Drag racing. They challenge the unicorns to a race. The unicorns take off in their dragster, chanting "bros" as they disappear into the distance. Skips presses a button on a remote control, raising a ramp. The dragster hits it and flies into the air. Benson presses another button, and the dragster explodes over the city skyline into sparkles. Then Benson rehires Mordecai and Rigby, not because they've proven themselves, because he has no other options. This episode reveals the actual power dynamic. The park has severe budget problems. They can't afford quality employees. The unicorns seemed perfect professional, efficient, competent, but they were scammers who wanted free rent. Even when Benson finds better workers, they're worse than what he has. He's stuck with Mordecai and Rigby because whoever's willing to work for whatever terrible wage he can offer is what he gets. And Mordecai and Rigby know this. That's why they can get away with so much. Benson can threaten to fire them all he wants, but he needs them more than they need him. They can't quit because jobs are hard to find. He can't fire them because replacing them is impossible. Everyone's trapped in a dysfunctional workplace, held together by necessity, not by any actual functional management. After Benson hoses them down and yells about the mess, Rigby asks Mordecai if he wants to go play video games. Strong Johns? Mordecai agrees. They learned nothing. The cycle continues. In Peeps, Benson tries to fix the dysfunction through surveillance. It makes everything exponentially worse. He catches Mordecai and Rigby having a staring contest instead of washing the truck. He sees an infomercial for Peeps, a surveillance system with 4 levels. He orders level 1, Mooch Master. It's a single camera. Mordecai and Rigby tape a drawing of themselves working over the lens. Benson upgrades to level 2, Slack Pack. Now they're wearing cameras on their bodies. They play a VHS tape of a dishwashing championship and point their cameras at the TV while they go upstairs to continue their staring contest. Benson upgrades to level 3, Bum Blitz. Cameras everywhere. The entire park is covered. Cameras in the bedroom, cameras on the cart, cameras in the bathroom. 4 cameras pointed at a single toilet. Mordecai and Rigby sneak into Benson's office and spill coffee on the keyboard, destroying the system. Benson loses it completely. He upgrades to level 4, Jeepers Peepers X Infinity with a lifetime guarantee. A truck backs up to the park. The doors open. Inside is a giant sentient eyeball. I'm Peeps. The eyeball follows everyone constantly. Pops opens his shower curtain to find it staring at him. Muscle Man is watching a monster truck show when it appears on the TV screen. Skip slides under a bus he's fixing and sees it looking down at him. Nobody can work. Pops hasn't slept in a fortnight. Muscle Man's losing muscle mass from stress. Benson tells Peeps to leave. Peeps says no. He's contracted for life, 24/7, 365, until Benson dies. When Benson rips up the contract, Peeps says he made copies. Mordecai challenges Peeps to a staring contest. If they win, Peeps has to leave. If Peeps wins, he takes everyone's eyes. They agree. Mordecai and Peeps stare for hours. Their eyes turn bloodshot. Peeps starts cheating. A small eyeball comes out of his back to rub his big eye. Rigby says, "That's cheating." Peeps says he's not blinking. Then dozens of tiny eyeballs emerge to help. Rigby shoots them with a laser pointer. "You cheated first. Street rules." Man. He burns out all the little eyes. Peeps' big eye finally closes. Mordecai wins. Rigby shoots Peeps' main eye with the laser pointer. It catches fire. Peeps jumps into the lake. An ambulance takes him away, screaming, "All I see is darkness." Benson's attempt to enforce productivity through monitoring destroyed trust completely and created a sentient surveillance monster that nearly took everyone's eyes. The fundamental issue that Mordecai and Rigby slack off constantly remains unsolved, because solving it would require actual communication, mutual respect, and systemic change. None of which happen at this park. So why does the park stay open? Because Pops works there. The entire operation exists, so the owner's son has something to do. Everyone else is supporting cast. The park is expensive daycare for a middle-aged man who chases butterflies. This is Regular Show's thesis about modern work culture. Employees are underpaid and undervalued but can't leave. Managers are overwhelmed and powerless but can't fix anything. Owners are detached and clueless. Everyone's frustrated. The simplest tasks become impossible. Equipment barely functions. Everything's outdated because nobody wants to pay for updates until it literally explodes in format wars. Workplace safety is non-existent. Benson dies from eating a spicy sandwich and just comes back the same day. Work-life balance doesn't exist. Problems follow people home. Relationships become everyone's problem. The job consumes everything. The system perpetuates itself because changing it is harder than maintaining dysfunction. It's easier to put up cameras than have honest conversations. Easier to threaten firing than address root causes. Easier to summon demons than set up chairs. And somehow, despite everything, people keep showing up. They form friendships. They care about each other. They save the universe together. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the work. It's about the people you're stuck with. Now, let's talk about those relationships. Part 4. Key relationships. In the episode It's Time, Mordecai and Rigby are at the coffee shop watching a trailer for Zombie Dinner Party. Rigby pulls out 2 tickets for opening night, but Mordecai already bought tickets to Pajama Sisters 2 because he's finally going to ask Margaret out. Rigby's furious about missing opening night while Mordecai can't even form coherent words around Margaret. When Margaret mentions she's moving and needs help, both guys offer. At her apartment, every time Mordecai tries to talk to Margaret, Rigby makes her laugh instead with stupid puns. Mordecai kicks him under the table and tells him to back off, but Rigby points out that Mordecai hasn't even made a move yet. Then Rigby pulls out the Zombie Dinner Party tickets and asks Margaret out right in front of Mordecai. She says yes. Back at the park, Rigby won't stop rubbing it in, counting down the hours until his date. Mordecai finally snaps and hides all the clocks so Rigby can't tell what time it is. When Rigby tries to check the microwave, wall clock, cuckoo clock, Mordecai takes them all and melts them in the microwave. They fight and tackle into the microwave, which explodes and sends them through time. While flying through dimensions, they're still yelling at each other. Rigby pushes Mordecai. Mordecai pushes back, and Rigby falls off and disintegrates into dust. Mordecai lands at the end of time where Father Time appears, made entirely of clocks. He says Mordecai killed his best friend over petty jealousy and shows him the truth hole, an hourglass that reveals every moment of the episode where Mordecai was jealous. Mordecai finally admits it. Even though Rigby's annoying, he's still his best friend. Father Time gives him a do-over and sends him back on the Time Pony. The episode resets to the coffee shop at the exact same moment. Same trailer, same tickets, but this time, when Rigby asks if Mordecai wants to go to zombie dinner party, Mordecai says yes. Margaret comes over, and Mordecai tries the same coffee joke. When Rigby points out how hard Margaret laughed at him, Mordecai looks jealous again. But this time, Rigby calls him out directly, and instead of denying it, Mordecai admits he's maybe just a little bit jealous. That's the difference. Mordecai admits it instead of bottling it up. The problem isn't solved, he's still jealous. Still can't talk to Margaret, but he's honest about it instead of letting it fester until he literally kills his best friend. 3 years pass in the show's timeline before we see real growth. In the episode Eileen Flat Screen, which takes place 3 years later, Eileen wins a flat-screen TV at a dance competition, and Rigby offers to install it at her apartment as a surprise. Mordecai's shocked that Rigby would do something so thoughtful. At Eileen's place, they accidentally move a plug belonging to her terrible roommate Joanne, who has an ancient TV she won't let anyone touch. When Joanne discovers what they did, she steals Eileen's new flat screen as revenge. A car chase ensues with them holding Joanne's TV hostage. On a bridge, Joanne's about to throw the flat screen into the river. Rigby tries to negotiate using an air horn, talking about mistakes and not wanting anything bad to happen to the TV she loves. It almost works until Joanne throws it anyway. Rigby whips out his utility whip, something he and Eileen got at a Renaissance fair, and catches the TV mid-air before it hits the water. Meanwhile, wind blows Joanne's TV off the bridge, and it breaks in the river. Back at Eileen's house after reinstalling the flat screen, Mordecai tells Rigby this was all really cool, and he's proud of him. The episode reveals that Rigby hangs out with Eileen constantly, now goes to Renaissance fairs, waters her plants when she's away, knows where she hides her spare key. When Mordecai asks when he went to a Renaissance fair and why they're always hanging out without him, Rigby points out that Mordecai and CJ are always together. So what's he supposed to do? Hang out by himself. 3 years earlier, Rigby sabotaged Mordecai's date because he couldn't handle his friend having other priorities. Now he's got his own life, his own friend, and he supports Mordecai's relationship instead of destroying it. He even uses skills learned with Eileen to save the day. Mordecai and Rigby's friendship was toxic codependency, where Rigby needed constant attention and Mordecai enabled it because he was afraid of losing his friend. But people grow. Rigby learned to be supportive. Mordecai learned to be honest about feelings. They're still best friends who hang out and work together, but they're not smothering each other anymore. In the episode 1000th Chopper Flight Party, Margaret's dad Frank is celebrating his 1000th helicopter ride as a traffic reporter. Mordecai gets an invitation for him, plus one guest. CJ's invited too, but says she's volunteering at a river cleanup that day and tells Mordecai to go without her, she trusts him. At the party, Mordecai tries to avoid Margaret while Rigby becomes his bodyguard, literally blocking Margaret every time she approaches by shoving plates at her, drawing marker lines, sticking his butt in her face. It's awkward, but working. Frank offers Mordecai the extra seat in the helicopter for the 1000th flight. Mordecai just wants a piece of cake for CJ, but gets pressured into the helicopter. Once in the air, he starts loosening up and laughing with Margaret about traffic reporting. Then CJ shows up on the ground. The river cleanup sent people home early after someone got chemical burns. She looks up and sees Mordecai and Margaret laughing together in the helicopter. Mordecai sees her and panics, stands up, and the helicopter jerks, making him fall into Margaret's lap. CJ transforms into a storm cloud and flies toward the helicopter, shaking it with wind and lightning. Frank and Denise fall out, but land safely in a pool. Margaret almost falls out, and Mordecai accidentally shoves cake into her mouth, trying to save her. CJ gets even angrier and strikes the helicopter with more lightning. Margaret grabs an air horn and yells that Mordecai is telling the truth. They're just friends. When CJ asks why she should trust Margaret, Margaret yells back that she has a boyfriend. Everyone freezes. Del Hanlon, the weekend sports anchor, shows up and waves at Margaret. CJ slowly realizes she freaked out over nothing, transforms back to normal, and flies away crying. Mordecai finds her later sobbing about how this time it was her fault, how Margaret's parents almost died because she freaked out about nothing. Mordecai agrees that it did happen. She flies away, and he watches her go while soft music plays over the destruction of the party. Here's the thing about Mordecai and CJ. Their relationship was doomed from the start, not because they weren't compatible, but because Mordecai couldn't let Margaret go. CJ liked video games, adventure, didn't play mind games, was emotionally available in ways Margaret never was. They were perfect together. But every time CJ saw Mordecai with Margaret, justified or not, those insecurities resurfaced. She wanted to trust him and tried so hard. But how do you trust someone who clearly isn't over their ex? Mordecai kept insisting he'd moved on while acting like he hadn't. He went to Margaret's dad's party, got in the helicopter with her. Sure, circumstances pushed him there, but he could have said no, could have just gotten the cake and left. Instead, he put himself in the exact situation CJ feared most, then got hurt when Margaret revealed she'd moved on. Mordecai wanted to keep the door open with Margaret while dating CJ, wanted to feel wanted without committing, and he hurt everyone, including himself. In the episode, The Thanksgiving Special, Mordecai and Rigby destroy Thanksgiving dinner, playing football in the house. The turkey explodes, sides are ruined, families arriving in hours. Everyone splits up to fix things. M and R see a commercial for Farmer Jimmy's Turkey Farm, where he's holding a contest. Best Thanksgiving song wins his prize turducken, one that was born naturally and only happens once every million years. They work on their song in Margaret's dad's helicopter, but can't figure out the first line. Then Thomas calls with bad news. Everyone's flights are delayed till tomorrow. Families won't make it for Thanksgiving. Rigby asks, what's the point of having Thanksgiving without family, and starts to walk off stage at Farmer Jimmy's contest. Mordecai stops him and says this is what the song needs to be about. They perform, and it's not about food or football or any of the stuff they wrote before. It's about sitting down next to your best buddies, having quality time with family, coming together despite differences. The audience loves it, and they win. Back at the park, a new feast is ready, prepared by all the families working together. Benson gives a speech, saying he knows M and R aren't perfect, but he's proud of them for saving Thanksgiving. During the celebration, everyone's passing food and laughing. Eileen's been there the whole time, supporting Rigby, believing in him. When he thought families wouldn't make it and the song seemed impossible, she was there. That's what Rigby and Eileen's relationship is built on. She doesn't enable his worst behavior like Mordecai used to, but she doesn't give up on him either. She sees who he can become instead of just who he is. Earlier that season, she helped Rigby get his high school diploma, believed he could graduate when no one else did, held him accountable while supporting him. With Mordecai, Rigby could stay stagnant in their comfortable childhood dynamic. With Eileen, Rigby has to grow, not because she demands it, but because he wants to be better for her. By series' end, they're married with 2 kids because Rigby became the person Eileen always knew he could be. In the episode Weekend, at Benson's, M and R knock Benson unconscious while installing a light bulb and panic, because if he wakes up and remembers, they're fired. Their solution is to take him back to his apartment and put him in bed, hoping he won't remember. At the apartment, neighbor Audrey answers the door. She's having a party Benson promised to attend that they planned a month ago. He never showed, and she's clearly disappointed. Mordecai realizes they messed up something Benson actually cared about, and decides to take unconscious Benson to the party. They prop him up, make him dance, high-five people, hold hands with Audrey. Her ex-boyfriend Chuck challenges Benson to a chili eating contest, and M and R feed Benson increasingly spicy foods until he wins. Then Chuck offers a victory drink called the Mississippi Queen, a disgusting mixture that wakes Benson up with its smell. In the bathroom, Benson's furious and demands to know what happened. He's about to fire them when the crowd starts chanting his name outside. He looks through the door and sees Audrey cheering for him. Benson makes a choice, goes back out, but makes M and R drink the Mississippi Queen too, or they're fired. They all drink, hallucinate together, and wake up on the park lawn. Benson's ready to fire them until he notices a paper stuck to him with Audrey's phone number. He tells them to get back to work. This episode reveals that Benson's a guy with a life outside work who wants to connect with his neighbor but is too busy managing chaos to relax. When M and R force him into the party unconscious, he finally gets to be that person, and people like him. Audrey gives him her number, not because he won an eating contest, but because she saw him trying. Later in the series, Benson and Audrey date, and she becomes his anchor, reminding him he's more than a park manager. That's what the park crew doesn't usually see. They see Benson at his worst, when he's stressed and threatening to fire them. Not the guy who wanted to be a rock star, but gave up drums for a stable job and sacrificed everything he loved for security. So what about Muscle Man and Fives? Their dynamic's different, simpler, healthier. Muscle Man's loud and obnoxious and the constant center of attention, while Fives is quiet and supportive and always there. No drama, no jealousy, no possessiveness. Muscle Man does elaborate pranks, and Fives goes along with them. When Muscle Man's dad dies, Fives is on the road trip to spread the ashes. In the finale, when Antipops erases them, their last act is high-fiving each other. 25 years later, they're living in Prague, working as DJs together, still side by side. That's what healthy friendship looks like without the baggage. But here's the thing about regular shows' relationships. They're messy, complicated, flawed, and that's okay. Mordecai and Rigby's friendship was toxic before it was healthy. Mordecai hurt CJ and Margaret before learning to be alone. Rigby needed Eileen to become a better person. Benson needed M and R to remember he has a life outside work. None of these relationships are perfect. They're works in progress, people learning how to love each other better, learning boundaries and communication, and when to hold on and when to let go. The park crew isn't related by blood, just people thrown together working a dead-end job at a park that exists so the owner's son has something to do. But over 8 seasons, they become family. They know each other's worst qualities: Mordecai's indecisiveness, Rigby's immaturity, Benson's anger, Pops's naivety, Skip's isolation, Muscle Man's obnoxiousness. But they also know each other's best qualities. When the universe is ending, they don't scatter, they fight together. When Pop sacrifices himself, they mourn together. When they reunite 25 years later, they celebrate together. That's what makes the park work, despite the dysfunction, not professional management or proper boundaries, but that they genuinely care about each other. Mordecai and Rigby start as a codependent mess, enabling each other's worst behaviors, and end as best friends who support each other's growth. Benson starts as an angry boss who sees them as problems and ends calling them family. These relationships evolve because people hurt each other, learn from it, do better, sometimes fail again, learn again, keep trying. When you watch regular show, you're watching people learn how to be better to each other, and sometimes that's harder than defeating ancient demons. They figure it out together because at the end of the day, it's about the people you're stuck with and learning to love them anyway. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Part 5. Major Story Arcs. In the episode, Stake Me Amadeus, the Season 4 finale brings Mordecai and Margaret's relationship to its breaking point. The episode opens with a montage of them being happy together, looking at clouds, going to the aquarium, riding bikes, photo booth pictures, kissing on a Ferris wheel. Mordecai's planning to take Margaret to an expensive restaurant called Stake Me Amadeus, using special Amadeus dollars he collected by trading favors with everyone at the park. He's been practicing in the mirror how to ask Margaret to officially be his girlfriend. Rigby gives him his full support, and even more Amadeus dollars. Everything's set up perfectly for Mordecai's big moment. Then, it all falls apart. At the restaurant, Mordecai gets arrested because the Amadeus dollars are counterfeit. The entire park crew gets dragged into an interrogation room. Turns out Pops bought them from a mysterious hat-wearing man on the street. And now they're all facing prison unless they can catch the real counterfeiter. The cops give Mordecai a deal, bring them the counterfeiter with proof of the fake bills, and everyone goes free. Margaret's already at the restaurant waiting for him. Mordecai agrees to do a sting operation right there at Stake Me Amadeus while on his date with Margaret. The suspect arrives, and Mordecai tries to get him to admit the bills are fake, but the guy keeps dodging the question. Margaret notices Rigby's there and asks what's going on. Before Mordecai can explain, the suspect flips the table and reveals himself as the robot bear from the Capicola gang that Mordecai and Rigby thought they'd killed in an earlier episode. He survived the shootout at the docks and spent months plotting revenge by creating thousands of fake Amadeus dollars to lure them into an expensive restaurant and trap them. A massive shootout erupts. Everyone's firing guns, the park crew, the FBI agents, the Capicola gang members who all somehow survived and rebuilt themselves as robots. Mordecai and Margaret are crawling behind tables trying to survive. Between bullets, smashing plates, and glasses around them, Mordecai decides this is still the right moment. He tells her the last few weeks have been the best of his life, that he feels like they're growing closer every day, that nobody makes him happier. He holds both her hands and asks her to be his girlfriend. Margaret's face lights up for a second, but then turns sad. She pulls out a torn envelope from her pocket acceptance letter to Milton University, her dream school. She's crying as she tells him she really likes him and what they have is special, but she may never get this opportunity again. She can't be his girlfriend. Margaret runs out of the restaurant crying while Mordecai reaches out trying to stop her. Everyone watches her leave in disbelief. Even the robot bear pauses to give relationship advice, saying school is overrated, which gets him immediately blown up by a rocket launcher from Amadeus, the restaurant owner who refuses to let anyone disparage education in his establishment. Later that day, Mordecai takes Margaret to the airport. Rigby finds him on the roof at sunset, brings him a soda, and sits with him without saying much. The episode ends with them looking out at the sunset together. This is the pattern of Mordecai and Margaret's entire relationship perfect setup. Supernatural chaos intervenes. Mordecai fumbles the moment. Something prevents them from actually being together. The universe itself seemed to conspire against them, throwing increasingly absurd obstacles in their path. Robot bear revenge plots, government sting operations, massive shootouts. None of it matters, because the real obstacle was always timing. Margaret needed to chase her dreams, and Mordecai wanted her to stay. Sometimes the most painful breakups aren't caused by lack of love, but by life pulling people in different directions. Mordecai spent years working up the courage to tell Margaret how he felt, and when he finally did, it was already too late. In the episode, The Dome Experiment Special, the park gets trapped under a giant government dome for a month-long survival experiment. Benson insists the dome isn't dropping until tomorrow, but it drops today, sealing everyone inside before they can escape. Mr. Maillard claims he got the date wrong, but Benson's convinced something fishy is going on. The email he printed out has different paper stock than his usual paper, the watermark's in the wrong font. Someone's actively lying to him about the dates. While everyone else adapts to life in the dome by growing gardens, building latrines, and establishing a functional community with High Five Ghost as the new de facto leader, Benson becomes obsessed with proving he was right. He discovers a smaller camouflage dome within the bigger dome, protected by armed guards and laser security. When he tries to tell everyone, the small dome has mysteriously vanished and nobody believes him. Benson spends 25 days living alone in the woods, growing out wild hair and stubble, building shelters, befriending a bird he names Antares, crafting explosive arrows, and observing the scientists' patterns. He becomes basically Rambo, surviving off the land while conducting reconnaissance on the secret dome facility. On day 25, he finally infiltrates the small dome by jumping onto a drone and sneaking inside. He finds blueprints showing the park dome being lifted off the ground and launched into space orbit around Earth, labeled as part of something called the Spark Initiative, along with X-ray blueprints of all the employees' skeletons. Dr. Dome confronts him and admits they changed the dates as part of the test, then eats Benson's printed email as proof. Benson gets knocked out with a tranquilizer dart. When he wakes up, he's in a fake recreation of the house's living room with scientists dressed in terrible costumes, pretending to be his friends, trying to extract information about what he discovered. Benson immediately realizes they're fakes when Rigby calls him sir, and everyone suggests playing the close our eyes game. He escapes the fake set, steals a dome cycle, and races back to warn the real park crew. Doctor, Dome deploys the full force of the dome security, weaponized drones, hovercrafts, weather control that creates freezing rain and lightning storms, scientists shooting tranquilizer darts back and forth in an aerial battle across the inside of the dome. Benson uses his explosive arrows to blow a hole through the moon door at the top of the dome, finally freeing everyone after a month of captivity. Outside, Mr. Maillard admits he changed the dates on purpose and that the whole thing was a test, though he refuses to explain what they were actually testing for. Benson forces him to publicly admit the date change, finally clearing his name. The episode reveals that the park has been under government observation for its supernatural activity, that international agencies have interest in studying the park's cosmic power, and that something much bigger than daily work assignments is happening. The dome experiment was never about survival or creating a self-sustaining ecosystem. It was about testing whether the park employees could function as a team under pressure, preparing them for something in space. This whole arc transitions the show from being about slacker groundskeepers dealing with supernatural chaos to being about cosmic destiny, with the park crew as key players in something that threatens the entire universe. In the episode Kill M with Kindness, Pops has completed his training and gained incredible cosmic powers. He can freeze water with cryokinesis, teleport to avoid attacks, turn thrown rocks into doves, create protective walls of positive energy, and communicate telepathically. But despite all this power, Pops still doesn't want to fight his brother. Earl insists the ancient scroll says they must fight, that there's no making peace with pure evil, but Pops refuses to believe violence is the answer. That night, he uses his telepathy to enter Anti-Pop's mind and finds him angrily typing one-star reviews about everything. They agree to meet in person to discuss peace, though Anti-Pop suggests his underground dungeon on a sulfuric lava planet before settling on a public arcade when Pops insists on neutral ground. The next morning, Pops leaves a note saying he's gone to see his evil brother and that cake fixes everything. He meets Anti-Pops at an arcade on an asteroid, bringing a Better Together cake as a peace offering. Anti-Pops leads him to a restricted back closet and tastes the cake before declaring it total garbage and smashing it to the floor. He admits he was never serious about making peace, that the universe and its creatures offer him nothing, so he plans to destroy everything. Pops tries to hug him, but Anti-Pops attacks, using his dark powers to summon giant black hands and erase arcade games from existence with his finger beams. Pops uses positive energy to create shields, and even regenerates an erased arcade game to show that kindness can fix broken things. But Anti-Pops is beyond reasoning. When Pops finally tries to fight back, Anti-Pops easily overpowers him and prepares to erase him from existence. The park crew arrives just in time, with Muscle Man throwing an arcade game at Anti-Pops to interrupt the final blow. They all try to fight him, but they're no match. Anti-Pops kicks them aside, erases a random alien bystander, and nearly kills Mordecai and Rigby before Earl shows up with his own cosmic powers. Earl tells Pops to fulfill his destiny while he holds off Anti-Pops, but Anti-Pops quickly defeats and erases Earl from existence, then begins erasing the entire asteroid. The crew barely escapes back to the park dome as Anti-Pop's erasure beam spreads across the asteroid, destroying everything, including the spot where they were just standing. Eileen launches the dome into space, setting coordinates for Planet Nielsen, where the all-knowing seer can tell them exactly when, where, and how the final battle will happen. This episode marks the point of no return. Pops tried peace and nearly died for it. Earl, their trainer and guide, is gone. The show's moved from Earth to space permanently. The park dome is now a spaceship carrying the crew toward their cosmic destiny. Anti-Pops is the embodiment of pure destruction and negativity, the universal force of entropy given consciousness and rage. The ancient prophecy says they fight every 14 billion years. Fists collide, universe resets, cycle repeats forever. Pops hoped kindness could break the cycle, but now understands that some problems can't be solved with hugs and cake. The final battle is inevitable, and the entire universe depends on its outcome. Everything that happened at the park, all the supernatural chaos, all the reality-bending adventures, all the growth and relationships, was preparing them for this moment. The show's ultimate message crystallizes here. Sometimes you can't avoid conflict through kindness alone, but you can face it with the people you love beside you. Part 6. The Park's Community and World. In the episode Dawn, the park faces a tax audit because Pops tried to pay with lollipops instead of actual money. Benson panics because if they don't fix this by 3 p.m., the government takes all their stuff. When he asks if anyone knows someone who can help, Mordecai suggests Rigby's brother, who's an accountant. Rigby immediately refuses and punches Mordecai repeatedly to shut him up. Benson demands they call Dawn or Rigby's fired. The episode flashes back to Rigby's 6th birthday party, where young Rigby's trying to get his friends to watch him blow out candles, but then Dawn walks in. Even though Dawn's younger, he's somehow taller than Rigby. All of Rigby's friends immediately abandon him to go give Dawn hugs and attention. Young Mordecai hesitates, but then joins them, and Rigby watches his entire birthday party become about his brother instead. Dawn shows up in his nice convertible, and everyone loves him immediately. He hugs Benson, Pops, Skips, and Mordecai, while Rigby refuses to participate. Dawn's charming, funny, successful, living in a huge modern house, and clearly has his life together in ways Rigby doesn't. While Dawn's working on the audit in the computer room, Rigby mocks him from the hallway. When Dawn suggests taking a break to play football, everyone except Rigby joins in and has a great time. Mordecai tries to get Rigby to just be nice to his brother because Dawn's actually pretty cool, but Rigby can't handle it. Finally, when they're alone, Dawn asks what's wrong and why Rigby never gives him any affection. Rigby snaps that Dawn shouldn't have been born. Dawn leaves hurt, and Rigby, trying to prove he doesn't need his brother, attempts to finish the audit himself. He presses random buttons and completely messes everything up. The deadline passes, and the audit begins consuming the house in black and white binary code, making furniture and rooms disappear piece by piece. Mordecai finds Rigby hiding under clothes on his trampoline and tells him the park is disappearing. They have to end this. Rigby says Mordecai doesn't know what it's like to have a brother. Mordecai responds that he kind of does because Rigby's like his brother, awkward to look at, embarrasses him all the time, wishes he could trade him in for someone else, but he doesn't, because that's what brothers are. You always gotta make do with brothers. They drive to Dawn's house, where Rigby finally admits the truth. He's not mad about just the birthday party, it's everything. He's always in Dawn's shadow. Dawn's so much better at everything, everyone likes him more. And to top it all off, everyone thinks Dawn's the older brother, when Rigby's actually older. A sad montage plays showing young Dawn playing with Rigby's friends while Rigby sits alone. Dawn winning 3-legged races, while Rigby stands at the starting line with no partner. Dawn squeezing into photo booth pictures with Mordecai while Rigby struggles to be seen in the back. Dawn had no idea and apologizes for stealing Rigby's friends. Then he reveals he's always looked up to Rigby. He gets his hair cut like him, tries to look like him, doesn't wear clothes just like him. When Rigby started walking around naked, Dawn thought it was so cool. They rush back to the park where Dawn works on fixing the audit while the house continues disappearing around them. Dawn finishes and says he just needs to do one more thing. He stands up with arms outstretched and tells Rigby he still needs some sugar. In slow motion, Rigby jumps through space on scattered household items to embrace his brother. Everything returns to normal. This episode reveals the park exists in a normal town with established infrastructure. Rigby's family lives nearby in the same community. There's a government tax system with actual consequences, accounting firms with professional services, residential neighborhoods where successful people own modern houses. Dawn represents what life looks like outside the park for someone who made different choices, stable career, financial security, respect from others. The contrast between Dawn's life and Rigby's shows the economic stratification in their world. Don can afford an expensive convertible and a massive house, while Rigby works a dead-end groundskeeper job. Yet both exist in the same town, attend the same family events, know the same people. High school still operates with teachers like Mrs. Applebottom, still teaching, meaning the educational system continues functioning and adults can return as students. Birthday parties happen at normal houses with normal kids. The park is fully embedded in a functioning community with families who've lived there for generations, with history and connections spanning decades. In the episode Skip Strikes, the park has a bowling team called the Park Strikers, competing in a league at Stardust Lanes. Benson, Mordecai, Rigby, and Skips are heading to the championship to win a trophy. They're facing a team called the Magical Elements, which turns out to be Death, Gary the Cyclops, and Reginald the Guardian. Death taunts them about being undefeated for thousands of years, saying no mortal stands a chance. Rigby trash talks back, and Gary makes his mouth disappear until the bowling alley manager yells at them for using magic. The manager's frustration reveals this happens regularly. Supernatural beings participate in the league, but have to follow rules about not using their powers. Later at dinner, Death corners Skips in the bathroom and threatens to reveal a secret from Skips's past unless he sits out the tournament. Skips agrees, terrified that his secret could ruin him. Back at the park, Skips tells the team he can't play without explaining why. Rigby refuses to forfeit and convinces everyone they can win without Skips. They replace him with Pops, who can barely knock down one pin. Meanwhile, Rigby made a side bet with Death if the Park Strikers lose. Death gets their souls in exchange for a glowing soul ball filled with ghostly white souls. Mordecai punches him repeatedly when he finds out. They realize they need Skips back, but he's left a note saying something from his past came back to haunt him, and he's rethinking his life. At the tournament, the Park Strikers are getting destroyed. Death and the Magical Elements use magic tricks to sabotage them, making bowling balls stop mid-lane, destroying pins, creating obstacles, while the manager can't control them anymore. Just when it seems hopeless, Skips shows up and decides his friends' souls are more important than his secret. Death asks if he wants everyone to know his real name isn't Skips, and Skips says, "Go ahead." He bowls a perfect strike, while the Magical Elements use their magic to destroy the entire alley around him, but his ball makes it through. The Park Strikers win. Death throws the soul ball at Rigby's stomach and admits he's got 1 billion just like it. He can wait for a few more souls. The Magical Elements spontaneously combust into flames as they depart. This episode reveals an entire hidden supernatural community existing parallel to the normal world. Death, Gary, Reginald, and other magical beings have their own social structures where they've known each other for millennia, have inside jokes, old rivalries, shared history spanning eons. Yet they participate in mortal activities like bowling leagues for fun, following most of the rules and only occasionally using magic to cheat. They have obligations to each other, debts and favors owed, secrets that can be leveraged. Skips is part of this network, fully integrated into their society. He attends their meetings, knows their customs, has a reputation among them. His real name being Walks instead of Skips is the kind of embarrassing secret that supernatural beings gossip about for centuries. The bowling alley manager trying to enforce no magic rules shows even immortal entities have to make some concessions when interacting with mortals in public spaces. There's an unspoken agreement that they can exist in mortal society as long as they don't completely wreck everything or reveal themselves too openly. In the episode Bank Shot, Rigby's undefeated at the basketball game at Wing Kingdom, where you bank shots off walls into hoops. A mysterious figure named Cash Bankus challenges him to a wager loser pays winner's bill. Cash removes his hood, revealing he has a basketball hoop for a head, and pulls out a basketball covered in crystals. Rigby loses and discovers Cash's bill is $12,000 because he and his crew have been eating gold-plated chicken all night. Rigby bets double or nothing, including his trucker hat, loses again, then bets triple or nothing, which ropes all his friends into owing $36,000. Cash gives them until tomorrow and says if they lose, They can never show their faces in Wing Kingdom again. Muscle Man squeals in horror at this prospect. Rigby calls Don for help, and they train together. Don reveals Rigby's always been better at bank shots than him. He just needs to trust his gut again, like when they were kids. The rematch happens, and after an intense back and forth where both players make increasingly impossible shots, bouncing balls off chandeliers and through obstacles, Rigby wins. But Cash refuses to give back the hat, saying he won it fair and square on the side bet. Then the god of basketball appears and explains Rigby's original double or nothing shot that went out the window actually continued banking through town, across the country, through Peru, onto a plane, met another banking ball, and they got married, then returned to Wing Kingdom where it finally went in. Rigby made the greatest bank shot of all time. This episode reveals professional circuits exist for various skills and games. There's infrastructure around bank shot competitions with rankings, legendary players, high-stakes gambling, and even deity-level oversight from the god of basketball, who tracks every shot ever made. Wing Kingdom is a hub for this subculture, where players gather, reputations are built, and massive amounts of money change hands. Cash Bankus and his crew represent an entire class of professional gamblers and competitors who travel around making bets. The fact that Cash has been eating gold-plated chicken all night shows there's an elite tier of establishments catering to wealthy clientele. The economic divide is stark. Park employees can barely afford normal meals, while people like Cash casually rack up $12,000 bills. Yet both groups exist in the same spaces, compete in the same games, interact in the same community. Rigby could have pursued Bankshot professionally, and might have had a legitimate career with sponsorships, tournament winnings, recognition. The choice to work at the park means accepting a lower economic status, but the opportunity for something better always existed in their world. In the episode Party Pete, Mordecai and Rigby throw a party when Benson takes the night off, but nobody shows up except their co-workers. Muscle Man mocks them for throwing a lame party. Then they see a commercial for Party Pete, a German guy who promises to save failing parties for $50 an hour. They only have $8 between them, which buys 10 minutes. Party Pete shows up with 2 attractive women and brings a life-sized ice sculpture of a urinal as the $8 version of his promotional ice sculpture. He plays electronic music, and suddenly everyone's having a great time. When his 10 minutes are up, Mordecai offers him Rady Cola from the 1984 Olympics to keep him there. Party Pete drinks the vintage soda and becomes supercharged, his eyes turning to white fire as he levitates and transforms into a human disco ball. Dozens of guests flood the house people they invited earlier, plus centaurs and random strangers who heard about the party. Party Pete keeps drinking more soda and growing more powerful until he's ready to explode. Skip says they need to give him more soda, so he burns out like a star. They throw the frozen urinal sculpture full of melted soda at him, and Party Pete explodes in a flash of white light, destroying the living room. All the guests and even the centaurs help clean up before Benson returns, and the house looks spotless when he arrives. This episode shows the party scene and college-aged social life thriving in town. When word gets out about a good party, dozens of people show up within minutes. There's enough of a young population that social networks function through word of mouth and online invitations. Professional party services exist with commercials and pricing structures. Party Pete's operation includes promotional ice sculptures, a team of attractive assistants, and a reputation for saving failing parties. The fact that he's been doing this long enough to have an established business model and German-accented branding shows there's demand for this service. Centaurs attend parties alongside humans with nobody questioning it, suggesting the supernatural elements are somewhat accepted or at least not shocking to the general population. The coffee shop where Margaret works represents another social hub. Throughout the series, it's shown as the place where park employees hang out outside work, where Margaret and Eileen formed their friendship, working together, where everyone's personal dramas intersect. Margaret's co-workers know about Mordecai's failed attempts to ask her out. Eileen becomes friends with Rigby through these connections. The coffee shop creates parallel friendships and relationships that mirror the ones at the park, showing how communities form around shared spaces. What makes Regular Show's world remarkable is how completely it's realized despite never drawing attention to itself. The park operates as a normal workplace within a functioning town that has families living there for generations, schools still teaching, restaurants serving food, bowling alleys running leagues, government systems enforcing taxes. Underneath this mundane infrastructure runs a massive supernatural network of immortal beings who've known each other for thousands of years, who participate in mortal activities for entertainment, who have their own social hierarchies and obligations. The two worlds exist simultaneously without contradiction because they're not separate, they're the same world viewed from different angles. Don can show up as a normal accountant to fix taxes while Death shows up to bowl in a league, and both are equally valid parts of the community. Rigby's family lives nearby in a normal house, while Skips attends meetings with beings who existed before recorded history. High-end restaurants cater to wealthy clientele, while Wing Kingdom hosts underground bank shot competitions with massive gambling operations. Professional party planners advertise on TV, while the god of basketball tracks every shot ever made across space and time. The park is a meeting point where everything converges. Normal people work there alongside those connected to supernatural forces. The coffee shop brings together Margaret's normal life and Mordecai's increasingly chaotic one. Other parks exist with similar dynamics, suggesting this is system-wide rather than unique to one location. East Pines becomes a rival, implying there's a whole network of parks with their own supernatural incidents and dysfunctional management. The world has depth in every direction, economic stratification between successful people like Don and struggling groundskeepers, social scenes with parties and gatherings, professional circuits for obscure skills, media infrastructure with commercials and game shows, supernatural communities with ancient traditions, dimensional portals to magical realms, cosmic entities who casually interact with mortals. Everything's connected and nothing contradicts. The show never explains why a town would have both normal tax auditors and immortal bowling teams, because in this world, that's just how things are. The mundane and magical coexist naturally, occasionally colliding spectacularly, but mostly just operating according to their own rules in the same space, creating a world that feels fully lived in and infinitely deep. And if you're enjoying this break, subscribe for more videos like these. Part 7. Workplace, Culture, and Dynamics. The park operates on a foundation of mutual resentment disguised as workplace camaraderie. Employees feel chronically undervalued, while management feels chronically overwhelmed. This toxic dynamic creates situations where simple gestures of appreciation explode into supernatural disasters, and basic workplace supervision becomes literally impossible. In the episode Appreciation Day, the annual employee recognition ceremony perfectly captures everything broken about the park's culture. Benson stands in front of everyone holding the Book of Park Records, a sacred document passed down from manager to manager since the park's founding. The book contains detailed records of every employee's contributions. Skips gets a plaque for working 365 days without a break. Pops gets recognized for helping a baby bird back into its nest. Muscle Man and High Five Ghost receive plaques for reminding everyone to work hard at having a good time. Mordecai and Rigby assume they're next. They've been working at the park for years. They've saved reality multiple times. They deserve recognition. Benson closes the book and tells them to clean up the mess. When they ask about their plaques, he explains that appreciation requires doing something worth appreciating. According to the official records, Mordecai and Rigby only mess up and slack off. Benson drives away in the golf cart while they stand there processing the rejection. The episode builds tension through Mordecai and Rigby's increasingly desperate attempts to earn appreciation through actual work. They rake leaves and end up fighting in the pile when they see someone approaching. Benson writes about their unprofessionalism. They mow the lawn, but Mordecai makes the mower go too fast, trying to impress Benson, resulting in them almost running him over before crashing into a tree. Benson documents this failure too. They paint the house and Rigby's ladder falls, knocking into Mordecai and spilling paint all over the golf cart, more negative documentation. Every genuine attempt to prove themselves backfires spectacularly, reinforcing Benson's belief that they're incompetent. The desperation grows until Rigby suggests just changing what the book says about them. They sneak into Benson's office that night and read their actual entries. Lazy good-for-nothing slackers. Their continued employment is one of life's greatest mysteries. General waste of time, energy, and space. The words sting because some of it rings true. Rigby kicks the phone in frustration. Mordecai erases their records and starts rewriting. Every morning, Mordecai and Rigby make blueberry pancakes and do the dishes. Benson saves all his hardest jobs for them. They're always sweating from hard work. He trusts them with his own life. Rigby adds a story about rescuing Skips during a blizzard and gets interrupted by writing about Snowballs the ice monster before Benson walks in and takes the book. The next morning, Benson smells pancakes and finds Rigby cooking. Benson eats them and praises Rigby's cooking. He notices they did the dishes and washed the floor. He high-fives them and gives them a list of incredibly difficult jobs. Montage of them doing brutal physical labor in summer heat. Rigby complains about the constant sweating. Mordecai realizes that being appreciated actually feels terrible because appreciation requires work. Then Pops announces a blizzard is coming, despite it being the middle of summer. A massive storm appears out of nowhere. Rigby realizes the book is making everything they wrote come true. They drive the golf cart through the blinding snow and crash directly into Skips, breaking his leg. The scream he makes when they lift him is genuinely horrifying. They load him into the cart and try to drive but get stuck in snowdrifts. Mordecai runs to get a snowplow while Rigby watches a massive ice creature emerge from the snow. Snowballs, the ice monster, appears exactly as described in Rigby's incomplete story. 20 feet tall with the ability to breathe fire, the monster chases them through the park, destroying everything. Mordecai tries to rewrite the book to make the monster disappear. The monster burns visitors' cars. Mordecai writes that it melted and disappeared forever. Nothing happens. Skips explains the monster still has the book's cover. Skips drives the golf cart at maximum speed straight at the creature, jumping the cart into the air and crashing into its arm. The cover falls. Rigby sprints toward it while the monster chases him. He jumps through the air, grabbing the cover just as the monster's jaws close behind him. He throws it to Mordecai seconds before getting swallowed whole. Mordecai catches the cover, restores the book, and writes that the monster went away and everything returned to normal. The monster melts. Rigby reappears alive on the grass. Benson takes the book back and starts yelling about firing them for stealing it before realizing there's no mess to clean up. Everything they accomplished through magical book manipulation actually happened and stuck around. The episode reveals how workplace appreciation has become completely corrupted at the park. Benson genuinely believes Mordecai and Rigby contribute nothing despite them literally saving the park countless times. His perception is so warped by daily frustrations that he can't see their value. Meanwhile, Mordecai and Rigby feel so chronically undervalued that they resort to magical fraud to get basic recognition. The book gives them everything they wanted: Benson's approval, difficult work assignments, acknowledgement of their capabilities, and it makes them miserable because appreciation through literal magic still requires actual effort. The system is so broken that even supernatural intervention can't fix the fundamental trust issues between management and employees. Benson goes right back to threatening to fire them despite just praising their pancakes and work ethic hours earlier. Nothing changed. The ceremony was supposed to boost morale and instead created resentment that nearly killed everyone. In the episode Gary's Synthesizer, workplace supervision reaches new levels of incompetence. Mordecai and Rigby are helping Skips clean out his garage. Skips is on the phone with Gary, turning down an invitation to hang out because he's busy. Mordecai spots something incredible and calls Rigby over. They're looking at a synthesizer with a sign that explicitly says, "Do not touch." Rigby dismisses the warning by pointing out that touching forbidden objects rarely causes problems. Mordecai lists every time touching things caused disasters. Rigby argues this time might be different and cranks up the volume. He pulls out a plug, causing the synthesizer to vibrate. They start giggling and swapping plugs between different outlets. Skips walks in and asks what they're doing with Gary's synthesizer. A crash interrupts him. The Guardians of Eternal Youth stumble out of Gary's crashed car. Skips asks where Gary went. Reginald explains they were driving to the Galactic Mall when Gary straight up disappeared. Oswald admits he doesn't know how to drive stick shift. The car swerved and crashed into a tree. The Guardians explain that Gary's synthesizer synthesizes his physical being into existence. His consciousness still resides within the device. Restoring the correct cable patch will project his physical form again. Rigby confidently announces they'll just plug everything back the way it was. Skips refuses to help since they caused this problem. Mordecai and Rigby nervously start plugging cables into random spots. Rigby presses a key. The synthesizer emits a screeching, high-frequency sound that shatters every window in Skips' house and destroys his priceless glass harmonica. Everyone glares at them. Rigby asks if anyone saw Gary. Reginald snaps his fingers and teleports them all to Synthos, Gary's home world, so they can recreate the patch properly. They arrive in a city where everyone plays synthesizers in perfect harmony. David, the king of Synthos, greets them and offers to help. He notices Skips doesn't wear a shirt and gets excited about taking a photo with his bare chest twin. They follow David through the city while Mordecai and Rigby struggle carrying the heavy synthesizer. A citizen rides his synthesizer like a skateboard, creating discordant sounds. David summons a security robot that captures the offender. David explains ending a song on an unresolved seventh is impossible to harmonize. Anyone creating discord gets arrested. At David's palace, he asks about Gary's patch combination and sees the photo Skips provides. David remembers Gareth and leads them to the re-synthesizing studio. Inside are the two arrested musicians from earlier. David plays an ominous tune that seals the door. He admits he can't let them re-synthesize Gary because Gary is the most wanted criminal in Synthos. His experimental jam sessions nearly destroyed the world. Their association with Gary makes them criminals too. David says they'll be shot into the sun like all discordants. The rocket prepares to launch. Skips remembers the glass shattering from earlier and tells Mordecai and Rigby to recreate their garage patch. They plug the cables the same way. Rigby plays keys. The high-frequency sound shatters the rocket's glass. Gary's distorted hologram emerges. The crowd recognizes him. Keith and Robert explain that Gareth is the rightful king. David seized the throne after Gary's disappearance 200 years ago and outlawed anything challenging. They've awaited Gareth's return. Mordecai realizes they need to copy the hologram's patch. Skips fights the security robots, while Mordecai and Rigby fix cables based on instructions from Keith and Robert. They adjust the ring modulator and low-pass filter. Gary reappears fully restored. He challenges David's right to the throne. They have a synthesizer battle. David plays harmonious melodies. Gary responds with discordant tones. The crowd chants Gary's name. Gary plays harmony through discord and wins. The final notes blast David onto the rocket. The rocket launches into the sun. David's physical form gets destroyed. Gary explains he hid his synthesizer to encourage himself to explore the galaxy before returning as king. He declares there shall be no ruler of Synthos going forward. Music will guide them. The episode exposes how the park's complete lack of supervision enables constant disasters. Skips left Gary's synthesizer in his garage with just a sign saying, "Don't touch." Mordecai and Rigby were given zero context about what they were moving or why it mattered. The warning was ineffective because they've seen so many warnings that turned out fine. Skips was too distracted by his phone call to properly oversee them. When they inevitably caused a problem, everyone just expected Mordecai and Rigby to fix it themselves despite having no training on interdimensional synthesizer technology. This pattern repeats across the entire series. Employees are given access to dangerous supernatural equipment without training, supervision, or safety protocols. Management assumes common sense will prevent disasters. Common sense fails constantly. Mordecai and Rigby almost killed Gary permanently through simple curiosity about a cool-looking device. The fact that Gary's physical existence depended on a machine stored in someone's garage with minimal security shows how casually the supernatural community treats reality-bending technology. David's regime on Synthos mirrors the park's dysfunction on a planetary scale. He tried to control everything through surveillance and punishment. Everyone lived in fear of creating discord. The system was so restrictive that citizens welcomed a king who'd been gone for 200 years just to escape the micromanagement. Gary's solution was eliminating the ruler position entirely and trusting people to guide themselves through music. The park would benefit from this approach. Benson trying to control everything through anger and threats creates the resentment that makes Mordecai and Rigby rebel. Skips trying to manage supernatural objects through minimal signage creates curiosity instead of caution. The workplace runs on assumptions that people will behave responsibly when given no reason to do so. The park's workplace culture creates a cycle where management feels disrespected, so they withhold appreciation, which makes employees feel undervalued, so they slack off, which reinforces management's belief that they're incompetent. Benson documents every failure in the Book of Park Records while ignoring every success. Mordecai and Rigby save reality regularly and receive no recognition. They make pancakes through magical intervention, and suddenly Benson loves them. Appreciation becomes transactional, based on immediate, visible work rather than actual contribution. The garage incident shows what happens when supervision consists of passive warnings instead of active training. Skips could have explained why the synthesizer mattered. He could have locked it somewhere secure. He could have supervised them properly. He assumed a sign would be enough. It wasn't. These failures compound over time until the workplace becomes genuinely dangerous. Employees normalize the risk of death because getting erased from existence is just another Tuesday. Management normalizes property damage because the house always gets rebuilt somehow. Everyone accepts dysfunction because changing the system seems harder than maintaining the disaster. Holidays at the park don't pause the supernatural chaos. They amplify it. Christmas brings evil elves and corrupted magic. Halloween summons actual demons from employee horror stories. New Year's forces people to confront romantic expectations through cosmic interference. The park's location as a dimensional nexus means even seasonal celebrations attract world-ending threats. Santa Claus crashes through Skips' garage on Christmas Eve because of course he does. The park is where reality-bending incidents happen, and holidays are no exception. In the episode The Christmas Special, the park crew is throwing their annual Christmas Eve party. The house is decorated with lights and a tree. Guests fill the kitchen and living room. Muscle Man drops a Santa cookie. Benson wears an ugly Christmas sweater. Pops collects candy canes. Mordecai and Rigby rap a holiday song to Margaret over the phone. Mr. Maillard stops by briefly, insults Benson's sweater, and leaves for his next party. Everyone's celebrating normally until Mordecai and Rigby head to Skip's garage for more soda. They see a meteor crash through the roof. Inside, they find Santa Claus bleeding from bullet wounds in the debris. He's not the commercial version, he's lean, bruised, and furious that of all the garages in the world, he crashed into this one specifically. The park has become such a magnet for supernatural incidents that even Santa's emergencies land here. Santa proves his identity by quoting letters Mordecai and Rigby wrote as kids begging for invisibility cloaks. They never received the cloaks because magical gifts violate Santa's rules. Even cosmic entities like Santa operate under regulatory systems. He explains his situation through flashback. His lead toy designer Quilgan created a magical box that grants desires but corrupts anyone who looks inside. Santa tested it on a focus group family and watched them turn evil fighting over what the box showed them. He ordered the box destroyed and all related work eliminated. Quilgan shot him and stole it back. Santa gives them the box and warns that Quilgan wants to use its power to destroy Christmas forever. Then Santa passes out. Mordecai and Rigby run for help, but when everyone returns, Santa has vanished. Benson accuses them of making up stories until he opens the box himself. Everyone sees something different inside their deepest desire manifested. The crew fights over it. Muscle Man won't release it. High Five Ghost grabs it. Pop steals it from him. They're all suddenly aggressive and possessive. The box's dark magic corrupts instantly. Skips ends the fight and examines the box. He smells the dark magic immediately and explains it can only be destroyed by casting it into molten lava deep beneath the earth. He knows a place, an abandoned mineshaft on the other side of East Pines Park. The park's location gives Skips access to network knowledge about nearby supernatural infrastructure. They head to East Pines on snowmobiles. Rigby triggers their security system by pulling a carrot on their snowman. Jean and the East Pines employees capture them. Meanwhile, Quilgan investigates Skip's garage with elf helpers and finds evidence the box was there. He mobilizes his team. Back at East Pines, Jean has the park crew tied up and accuses them of pranking. His employee, Larry, opens the box and everyone who looks inside becomes obsessed. The corruption spreads instantly, regardless of who's holding it. Security cameras show Quilgan's armed elves attacking the building. Jean looks at a photo of his family at Christmas and decides to help. He leads them to the mineshaft entrance and promises to hold off the elves. Before leaving, he warns about booby traps inside. The mineshaft reveals ancient supernatural architecture designed to test worthiness. The floor collapses into a slide. They land near pressure-sensitive tiles that shoot ice spikes. Skips reads wall inscriptions explaining each trial. They use a skeleton to test the pattern. Muscle Man volunteers to jump the sequence himself. Ice spikes shoot around him, but he makes it through and opens the door. The next trap is a pinball machine suspended over an abyss. Skips reads that racking up points creates an ice bridge, but losing balls breaks the surface. Benson plays, while Quilgan's people appear behind them. The crew runs across the forming bridge while Benson keeps playing under pressure. His balls run out and he sprints as the floor collapses under Quilgan's people. They fall into the pit. Only Quilgan survives. The final trial requires wrestling a polar bear. Pops volunteers and pins the bear after intense combat. The bear congratulates them for proving worthy and opens a passage in its chest. They slide to the lava pit chamber. Quilgan appears with a gun and reveals he used the stairs the whole time. There was a simple path available, but the supernatural architecture forced them through trials anyway. Mordecai prepares to hand over the box. An invisible force hits Quilgan. Santa appears, removing an invisibility cloak. He survived because he wore a bulletproof vest. His workshop can manufacture advanced technology alongside magical items. Quilgan throws a grenade. The explosion makes the box slide toward him. He opens it and wishes for Christmas's destruction. The box grants his desire by placing TNT in Christmas decorations worldwide and creating a detonator. The magic works instantly across global infrastructure. Mordecai tackles Quilgan and they fall toward the lava. Rigby jumps after them. Mid-air, everyone fights over the box as it shifts, forms detonator to ice cream cone to other desires. Rigby passes it to Mordecai, who summons a hoverboard. Quilgan falls into the lava with the box. Both are destroyed. The park crew escapes. Christmas is saved because groundskeepers at a municipal park happen to be in the right place when Santa crashed. Later, Santa brings everyone home on his sleigh. The crew thanks him. Skips mentions calling him for bowling sometime, confirming ongoing relationships between park employees and cosmic entities. Santa admits he doubted they could succeed, but they saved Christmas. Rigby asks if this gets them on the nice list. Santa says crazier things have happened. He leaves in his sleigh. Mordecai and Rigby find a present under the tree. The note says sometimes you have to break the rules. Santa gave them invisibility cloaks, despite his earlier claim that magical gifts violate regulations. The rules can be bent for people who prove themselves worthy through action. The episode reveals several crucial aspects of the park's place in the larger supernatural world. Santa crashes at Skips' garage specifically because the location attracts cosmic-level incidents. The park sits at coordinates where major supernatural events naturally converge. Skips knows about ancient mineshaft trials and lava pits in neighboring parks, showing he has comprehensive knowledge of regional supernatural infrastructure. The booby traps test worthiness through challenges calibrated to different skills, pattern recognition, gaming ability, physical combat, The architecture implies an ancient system designed to protect dangerous magical artifacts by ensuring only capable individuals can reach destruction sites. Gene's willingness to help, despite rivalry, suggests even rival parks recognize certain threats require cooperation. The park crew saving Christmas wasn't accidental. They were positioned at the exact location where Santa would crash, equipped with knowledge about how to destroy dark magic, and connected to networks that could guide them through trials. The park functions as a first response team for supernatural emergencies, whether they realize it or not. Other holidays follow similar patterns, where the park's supernatural significance intersects with seasonal events. Terror Tales episodes document actual workplace horrors repackaged as Halloween entertainment. The crew's shared experiences with demons, possession, and dimensional beings become campfire stories, proving the park's consistent paranormal activity. New Year's Kiss shows how romantic expectations get twisted by supernatural forces operating at the park. The Thanksgiving special reveals family dysfunction, amplifying under holiday pressure, while supernatural incidents continue in the background. White elephant gift exchanges become complicated when employees have vastly different economic situations, and some receive genuinely magical presents. Park-specific celebrations like the 1000th Chopper Flight Party create traditions unique to this location's found family dynamic. Each holiday proves the park's role as a nexus point where normal human celebrations collide with cosmic-level supernatural infrastructure operating just beneath surface reality. Part 8. Holidays and Special Events. Holidays at the park don't work like holidays anywhere else. Normal people worry about gift budgets or family drama or whether someone's going to get drunk at the office party. Park employees worry about possessed dolls trying to murder them, ghost bands launching them into crash pits, and wizards cursing them to transform into houses. The park's status as a dimensional nexus means seasonal celebrations become magnets for supernatural disasters. Halloween summons actual demons based on the crew's real horror stories. New Year's enables literal time travel intervention to prevent timeline disasters. Every holiday amplifies the park's fundamental nature as a place where normal reality breaks down and cosmic chaos takes over. In the episode Terror Tales of the Park, the crew gathers for their annual Halloween tradition of telling scary stories. Pops starts with a tale about cleaning his room with Mordecai and Rigby when they find his old childhood doll Percy in a box. The doll has 250 stored phrases and talks when you pull the string on its back. Percy immediately says threatening things like, "I'm gonna draw on your face," and "Seriously, I'm gonna draw on your face." Mordecai and Rigby convince Pops to throw the creepy doll away because grown men shouldn't play with dolls. They toss Percy in the trash. The next day, Pops shows up with marker drawn all over his face, claiming Percy did it during a playdate. Mordecai and Rigby throw Percy away again for Pops' own good. That night, they hear noises upstairs and find Pops locked in his room having a tea party with Percy. The doll knocks the teapot out of Pops' hands and demands to draw on his face while holding a marker. Mordecai breaks down the door and knocks Percy away with a bat. The doll chases them to the basement, wielding a shovel, and knocks both Mordecai and Rigby unconscious. Percy demands Pops bring him the marker to draw on their faces. Pops refuses and says it's not cool for grown men to have dolls and kicks Percy into the fireplace. Percy emerges from the flames on fire and runs at them before finally dying. The story establishes that objects at the park can become possessed and actively malicious. A children's toy with pre-recorded phrases gains sentience and physical strength sufficient to overpower multiple people. The park's supernatural influence corrupts inanimate objects into genuine threats. Muscle Man tells the second story about finding an abandoned RV in the fog with his friend High Five Ghost. They recognize it as perfect for launching into the crash pit, which is apparently a local tradition where people send vehicles off a ramp into a giant pit while crowds cheer. Muscle Man finds keys inside the RV behind the visor. When they start it up, strange things happen. The windshield wipers activate by themselves. The radio turns on and tunes itself. Green glowing fog pours from the air vents and surrounds them both. The fog transforms into the ghosts of Skull Punch, a dead band who owned the RV. The lead singer Harold explains this caravan is their final resting place and demands to know why Muscleman wants to drive it into the crash pit. Muscleman says that's exactly what they're doing. The ghosts decide if the RV is going into the crash pit. Muscleman and High Five Ghost are getting front row seats, meaning they'll die in the crash. The RV speeds toward the pit where a crowd waits. Muscleman stalls by saying they can't crash without playing a show first, because everyone will think they're lame. The Ghost Band agrees and performs an absolutely terrible song called Devastation Nation that's just nonsense lyrics about cats and goats. The crowd boos and throws trash at them. Muscleman manages to throw a cinder block onto the gas pedal. The RV launches into the pit. The ghosts land first, and their vehicle crushes them, killing them again. Muscleman and High Five Ghost float up as ghosts themselves. Muscleman realizes he's dead, but declares it the best crash pit ever. This story reveals spirits can become trapped in objects at the park and demonstrates how death itself works differently near the dimensional nexus. The ghosts maintained consciousness after death and possessed their vehicle for years. When they died a second time, they were actually destroyed. Muscleman and High Five Ghost died, but appeared as ghosts immediately, suggesting the park's location affects what happens to souls after death. Rigby tells the third story about Halloween night, when he and Mordecai go trick-or-treating. Mordecai dresses as a dad with 5 fake children to maximize candy collection. Rigby dresses as a tiny old robber, which gets him no candy because he keeps jumping out of bushes and scaring people. They arrive at a creepy house where no one answers the door. Rigby wants to egg the place, but a cop shows up and warns that egging houses is illegal. Rigby eats a raw egg to prove he was just having a snack. The cop leaves confused. Rigby eggs the house anyway, out of spite for eating that raw egg. The door opens, and a wizard emerges who rips a piece of fur from Rigby's body while laughing maniacally. Rigby becomes convinced the wizard cursed him. Back home, Rigby acts increasingly paranoid, seeing the wizard's shadow everywhere. Suddenly, Rigby starts transforming into a house. A door number appears on his chest that won't come off. A doorknob grows from his stomach. His tail becomes a chimney. Mordecai realizes the wizard put a curse on him and runs to find the wizard's house to apologize. The wizard isn't home. Meanwhile, Rigby fully transforms into a house. The crew explores inside and finds it smells like Rigby and has stairs and a bathroom. The wizard calls on the phone and says Rigby will pay for egging his house. When Benson tries to threaten him, the wizard's arms come through the phone and strangle Benson. The wizard hangs up and says they'll all pay. Later, the wizard shows up in person and systematically kills the entire crew. He knocks Mordecai unconscious. He throws Skips into the chimney and burns him alive. He flushes Benson down the toilet. He makes Pops disappear in a closet. He chops off Mordecai's head. Then the wizard approaches House Rigby and reveals his revenge, throwing eggs at him. Rigby gets furious that the wizard killed everyone just to egg him. The wizard points up, and a giant egg falls from the sky and crushes House Rigby completely. The story demonstrates individual supernatural beings can specifically target park employees and have enough power to kill the entire crew. The wizard's magic works through curses, transformations, teleportation through phones, and reality manipulation. His abilities suggest magic users exist in this world, with tremendous power, who can be offended by ordinary pranks and retaliate with disproportionate force. The 3 stories reveal the park's documentation of supernatural threat types. Possessed objects like Percy show inanimate items can gain malicious sentience. Ghost bands like Skull Punch prove spirits remain trapped in their belongings after death. Wizards demonstrate individual magic users have enough power to systematically murder everyone at the park. The annual Halloween tradition serves multiple purposes. It processes trauma by turning genuine supernatural encounters into shareable narratives. It educates new employees about what kinds of threats they might face. It creates community through shared acknowledgement of their bizarre workplace reality. Most importantly, it establishes that the supernatural incidents aren't random flukes but consistent patterns. The park attracts specific categories of paranormal activity year after year. The crew has learned to expect possessed items, trapped spirits, and vengeful magic users as regular occupational hazards. Terror Tales proves the park's role as a supernatural hotspot is permanent infrastructure that happens to get extra concentrated during Halloween when the barrier between worlds thins even further. In the episode, New Year's Kiss, the crew discusses resolutions at the coffee shop. Mordecai declares his resolution is to talk to cute girls instead of waiting and wussing out. A girl with snake hair catches his attention. The crew pressures him to approach her, and he successfully gets her phone number. Rigby goes to the bathroom and encounters a hologram of his future self appearing from nowhere. Future Rigby warns him that Mordecai will kiss a girl at tomorrow's New Year's masquerade party, and Rigby must stop him. When Rigby asks why, Future Rigby says he can't explain due to future rules, but insists it's the only way Mordecai will be happy. The hologram runs out of credits and disappears. Rigby flushes the girl's phone number down the toilet to prevent the date. Mordecai gets angry, but the girl calls him directly anyway and agrees to go to the party. At the party, Rigby desperately searches for Mordecai, trying to prevent the midnight kiss. He overhears Mordecai's date, Tracy, admit on the phone that she thinks Mordecai is weird and she's only using him to make her ex-boyfriend Tommy jealous. Rigby tries warning Mordecai, but Mordecai won't believe him and locks Rigby in the bathroom. Future Rigby appears again and gives past Rigby a stopwatch that can slow down time for 60 seconds. Rigby escapes through an air vent as the countdown to midnight begins. He activates the stopwatch, which freezes everyone except himself. While running to stop the kiss, he accidentally bumps into Pops, who opens a bottle of sparkling apple juice early. The cork hits Muscle Man in the eye, who starts rampaging in a diaper. Rigby finally reaches Mordecai and shoves the person away just as time returns to normal. But Rigby discovers he saved the wrong person, a guy named Tommy, who happens to look like Mordecai and is wearing a mask that resembles Mordecai's face. Tommy and Tracy kiss and leave together. Mordecai reveals he figured out who Tommy was and never kissed Tracy. He thanks Rigby for being right. Then Mordecai accidentally bumps into a girl with a cloud head who he doesn't recognize because of her mask. They talk about both having bad dates and kiss at midnight. When everyone removes their masks, Mordecai discovers the girl is CJ, someone he previously dated. Both are shocked, and CJ runs out of the party upset. The episode reveals time travel communication, specifically targets the park as a location. Future Rigby doesn't appear at Rigby's future home, or at a neutral location. He appears in the park's bathroom because he gets better reception there. The park's dimensional properties enable cross-temporal hologram technology to function. Future Rigby can contact his past self because the park exists as a stable point across multiple timelines where temporal interference remains possible. The stopwatch that slows time demonstrates supernatural technology exists in the future that can manipulate localized reality. These devices work at the park specifically because the location already bends normal physics. The entire episode proves romantic choices made at the park have timeline implications serious enough to warrant future intervention. Mordecai kissing the wrong person at midnight would have created consequences severe enough that Future Rigby spent credits trying to prevent it. The Wheels of Fate, Skip's mention, suggests the park sits at a junction point where individual decisions branch into different timeline outcomes. New Year's Eve at the park is a temporal nexus event where relationship choices determine which timeline becomes reality. Holidays at the park function as amplification events for its existing supernatural properties. Halloween doesn't create the possessed dolls and trapped spirits, it concentrates them into visible manifestations. The crew can process through storytelling. New Year's doesn't create timeline branches, it highlights critical junction points where the future crystallizes based on present choices. Christmas brings cosmic entities like Santa crashing through garages. Thanksgiving forces family dysfunction to collide with supernatural chaos. Every seasonal celebration proves the park's significance extends beyond its role as a municipal workplace. The location serves as a dimensional nexus where reality operates under different rules, and holidays magnify those differences into obvious disasters. The crew has learned to expect that normal human traditions will transform into life-threatening supernatural incidents, because that's what happens at a place where cosmic infrastructure meets everyday life. Their celebrations become about acknowledging they chose each other despite the constant chaos rather than because everything went smoothly. The found family bonds cement through shared trauma repackaged as entertainment, temporal intervention to protect each other's futures, and the recognition that surviving another holiday at the park is itself worth celebrating. And subscribe to our channel. Now let's move on to the next part. Part 9. Personal Growth Arcs. In the episode Rigby's Graduation Day Special, Rigby finally graduates from high school after years of living with the shame of being a dropout who forged his best friend's college acceptance letter. The episode opens with him preparing to give a graduation speech on national television for a show called Inspire America. Principal Dean tells him he represents everyone who dropped out and came back, which means the entire country will be watching. Rigby spends days trying to write something good. He watches videos of great speeches, visits a museum with statues of famous orators, practices in front of the crew multiple times. Nothing works. Every draft he writes gets crumpled up and thrown away. Meanwhile, Mordecai is on a mission to get Rigby's favorite seasonal soda Coffini from an outlet hours away in the desert. But Mordecai isn't happy for his friend. When Rigby calls desperately asking for help with the speech, Mordecai tells him he's too smart now to need anyone's help and hangs up. Mordecai admits later that seeing Rigby succeed is hard because he always liked being the one doing better. His van gets a flat tire in the desert, and he has to sleep outside the Coffini outlet, waiting for it to open at 5 in the morning. The graduation ceremony arrives, and Rigby completely bombs his speech on live television. He stammers through his note cards, realizes he never finished writing punchlines, and runs off stage in humiliation. Backstage, he lies on the floor, hugging his tail in despair. Then Mordecai shows up with a dusty, dented Coffini can. He apologizes for being jealous and explains he realized how unfair he was being when he heard Rigby embarrassing himself. Mordecai says it's awesome that Rigby worked so hard to get here, and if Rigby can graduate from high school, then anything is possible. Rigby takes back his confidence, returns to the stage, and delivers an incredible speech about how doing hard things makes them become not that hard. He talks about scaling cave walls in geology class, traveling to China, winning a takeout food race. He explains he did these things for himself because he's surrounded by impressive people who lifted him up and showed him it's possible. The entire stadium gives him a standing ovation. The graduating class throws their caps in the air. Even the Inspire America production crew breaks into tears and dances. Principal Dean hands Rigby his diploma safe and uneaten. This episode completes Rigby's redemption arc that started when he forged Mordecai's college acceptance letter back in high school. That betrayal defined their friendship for years, because it revealed how deeply insecure Rigby felt about his brother Don, always being better at everything. Rigby sabotaged his best friend's future because he couldn't handle being left behind. Getting his diploma years later proves he can commit to long-term goals and overcome his biggest failure. The park becomes the place where this redemption happens. Rigby works his dead-end groundskeeper job while attending night classes and summer school. His co-workers watch him study between tasks and celebrate every small victory along the way. The graduation ceremony happens at the high school, but the party was supposed to happen at the park because that's where his found family lives. The speech itself demonstrates how much Rigby has changed. Instead of making jokes about his mom or pulling pranks, he delivers genuine inspiration about being lifted up by impressive people. He credits Eileen for believing in him, Mordecai for being his best friend, his parents, and even Don. The kid who used to define himself by competing with his brother now acknowledges Don helped him grow. Most importantly, Rigby recognizes he did this for himself rather than to impress anyone. The park gave him the space and support to become someone who could finish what he started. In the episode Real Date, Benson asks Mordecai for relationship advice about a woman named Pam, who works for the scientists running the dome experiment. This represents a complete role reversal from early seasons when Benson constantly yelled at Mordecai for slacking off and making stupid romantic decisions. Now Benson is vulnerable about his dating struggles, and Mordecai is mature enough to offer thoughtful guidance. The episode starts with Mordecai and CJ playing board games for their 1-month anniversary. Rigby and Eileen point out they've never been on a real romantic date, just casual hangouts. Mordecai decides to make reservations at an expensive restaurant and buy CJ a charm bracelet with symbols representing everything they did when they first met. Meanwhile, Benson searches desperately for Pam at the mall after learning the scientists are packing up. He finds himself surrounded by women in lab coats at a convention called LabCon and can't locate her anywhere. He ends up eating 3 buckets of wings at Wing Kingdom, drowning his sorrows. Back at the restaurant, Mordecai tries to have the waiter serve the bracelet as dessert, but CJ keeps making excuses to leave because she ordered a surprise waffle cake from a pastry shop. They both call Rigby and Eileen for backup to coordinate their competing surprise plans. Eventually, everything comes together at the waterfront amusement park, where both gifts are waiting on a candlelit table. Then the CEO of Couple Corral shows up in a submarine demanding Mordecai break up with CJ because happy couples are bankrupting his dating site. He fires a bazooka missile at them. Mordecai pushes CJ out of the way and gets blown up. CJ transforms into a giant storm cloud and destroys the CEO with lightning. Her tears bring Mordecai back to consciousness. The explosion welded all the bracelet charms into a single heart shape. They kiss as the sun rises. The important part is what happens earlier when Benson asks Mordecai for help. Benson says he always thought it would be romantic to have a waiter serve a gift box instead of dessert. Mordecai calls this idea genius. Rigby even comments on how Benson is still single when he has such good romantic instincts. This conversation shows both characters have grown in different directions. Benson spent years yelling at Mordecai for being irresponsible and immature, especially about relationships. He watched Mordecai fumble things with Margaret repeatedly and then create drama with CJ. But now Mordecai has learned from those painful experiences. He knows how to plan thoughtful gestures and communicate honestly. He's become someone who can give relationship advice to his manager. Benson, meanwhile, is finally allowing himself to be vulnerable about his personal life. He admits he doesn't know how to approach dating and needs help from an employee he constantly threatens to fire. The workplace hierarchy breaks down in this moment because they're connecting as people rather than boss and worker. Benson recognizes that Mordecai has wisdom worth learning from, despite all his past mistakes. The park created an environment where this role reversal becomes possible. They've worked together long enough and been through enough supernatural disasters that Benson can admit he needs guidance, and Mordecai can provide it without judgment. Both of them have become better versions of themselves through their time at the park. In the episode Skip's Stress, the crew discovers that Skips has been handling too much work alone, and his stress is literally killing him. The episode opens with Skips working on the cart when Mordecai and Rigby ask him to fix the fountain pump. Then Benson needs help painting benches. Then Pops wants help planting flowers. Then Muscleman wrecked a gas line. Black lines start appearing on Skip's arm as physical manifestations of severe stress. At lunch, everyone encourages him to try a stress test machine at the mall. The machine reads his stress level as critical, and a pharmacist warns him that if he doesn't reduce his stress immediately, he will die. The pharmacist says immortality won't save him from this. Benson orders Skips to take the rest of the day off, but Skips insists he has too much to do. He goes home to rest and has a nightmare about everyone at the park needing his help simultaneously while turning into dark creatures. He wakes up screaming, and the stress has spread throughout his body. The next day, he tries to work anyway, but collapses, screaming and rolling down the stairs. Pops explains there's an ancient stress spell in the Himalayan mountains that relieves all stress when rung, but it's 5 times more dangerous than the stress itself. The crew flies to the mountains in Pop's car. They arrive at the bell, surrounded by skeletons of people who lost their battles against their stress. Skips climbs onto the bell and warns everyone to cover their ears for as long as the bell rings. He rings it and his stress exits his body, transforming into a giant monster that looks like him. The crew tries to help, but Rigby uncovers his ears to grab a sword for Skips. This causes all their stress to exit their bodies too. The stress combines into one massive monster with 5 heads representing each person. They fight their individual stress heads while Skips battles the main body. Eventually, Skips destroys the monster with a spear and everyone cheers. Mordecai apologizes for making Skips so stressed. Benson promises they'll all do more of their own work without bothering him. Skip says he enjoys helping friends but agrees that might not be a bad idea. On the way home, Pops discovers they have a flat tire. Skips moves to fix it automatically, but everyone stares at him until he backs away. They work together to replace the tire while Skips watches and smiles. This episode reveals the fundamental problem with Skips being the park's immortal guardian for 200 years. He spent centuries being the person who fixes everything and solves every problem. When Mordecai and Rigby summon a killer keyboard demon, Skips knows the ritual to banish it. When anyone asks about supernatural phenomena, Skips has the answer because he's seen it before. When equipment breaks or tasks seem impossible, Skips handles it because he has the skills and experience. But this arrangement created an unhealthy dynamic where Skips never learned to ask for help or admit limitations. He's been alone so long watching everyone he cares about age and die that he stopped letting people support him. The stress manifesting as physical black lines demonstrates how this isolation was literally killing him. Even immortality can't protect against the damage of carrying every burden alone for 2 centuries. The ancient stress bell existing in the Himalayas proves this is a problem immortal beings have faced before. All those skeletons represent people who tried to handle their stress solo and failed. The fact that the bell requires fighting your stress as a physical monster shows you can't just magically remove the consequences of refusing help. You have to actually battle the accumulated weight of doing everything yourself. When Rigby's stress joins with Skip's stress and creates a multi-headed monster, it represents how the crew's dependence on Skips made the problem worse. They enabled his isolation by constantly asking him to fix things instead of learning to do work themselves. The resolution comes when they work together to change the flat tire at the end. Skips has to literally stand back and watch them handle a simple mechanical task without jumping in to help. His smile shows he's accepted that letting others support him doesn't make him weaker. It makes him part of a community that cares about keeping him alive. The park gave Skips something he hasn't had in 200 years, a found family worth being vulnerable with. Growth at the park happens through supernatural crisis, forcing emotional development in ways normal workplaces never could. Rigby graduates high school because his co-workers support his education while he works a dead-end job. Mordecai learns relationship wisdom from painful failures and becomes mature enough to mentor his manager. Skips accepts help after 2 centuries of isolation because his stress literally transforms into a monster that requires teamwork to defeat. The park's role as a dimensional nexus means personal struggles manifest as physical threats. Stress becomes a creature you can fight with swords. Romantic pressure enables time travel intervention. Educational achievement gets broadcast on national television moments before the park launches into space. These heightened stakes force everyone to confront their issues directly, rather than avoiding them. You can't ignore your problems when they take physical form and try to kill you. The found family dynamic enables this growth because everyone has witnessed each other's supernatural disasters and survived together. Benson can ask Mordecai for dating advice because they fought demons side by side. The crew can tell Skips to rest because they understand how much he sacrifices. Mordecai can overcome his jealousy and support Rigby because their friendship has survived time travel, body swaps, and apocalyptic threats. The park gives people second chances to become better versions of themselves surrounded by others doing the same thing. Rigby redeems himself for forging the letter. Mordecai learns from romantic failures. Benson opens up about vulnerability. Skips chooses connection over isolation. 7 years of supernatural chaos at a municipal park transforms co-workers into a family that grows up together through shared trauma and mutual support. Part 10. The Final Battle and Legacy. In the episode, A Regular Epic Final Battle, everything that seemed random about the park finally makes sense. The crew has been in space for an entire season after their dome launched at the end of Rigby's graduation. They've learned that Pops is actually a cosmic being named Mega Cranus, who was born alongside his evil twin brother Malum Cranus, who everyone calls Anti-Pops. The universe created Anti-Pops to balance out Pop's pure goodness. These two brothers have been fighting for 14 billion years across every iteration of the universe. Every single battle ends the same way: their fists collide, both die, the universe resets, and they're reborn to fight again. This current universe is just the latest cycle. The Park Dome lands on Lollyland, Pop's home planet, which looks like a bombed-out ruin. The residents who survived explain this destruction came from billions of years of collateral damage. They take the crew to meet the Guardian of Lollyland, a giant woman who has witnessed every battle. She tells them she's never seen the fight end in victory, only mutual destruction followed by a reset. The crew examines ancient tapestries documenting every previous clash. Muscleman notices one tapestry shows figures that look exactly like the park crew in battle armor. The Lollyland residents confirm everything happening now has happened before. Every cycle plays out identically. Same battles, same strategies, same ending. This revelation exposes the park's true purpose. Every supernatural incident wasn't random chaos. The park was specifically chosen as Pop's training ground. Mr. Maillard and the scientists knew his son was a cosmic entity destined to fight his evil brother. They created an environment where Pops would be surrounded by ordinary people facing extraordinary situations. Mordecai and Rigby were teaching Pops about friendship through their bond. Benson was showing Pops what leadership looks like under pressure. Muscleman's pranks, Skip's ancient wisdom, High Five Ghost's loyalty. Everything contributed to Pop's cosmic education. The park's location as a dimensional nexus meant supernatural threats appeared constantly, forcing everyone to adapt and overcome impossible odds. Pops learned humanity by working alongside humans. He learned love by being part of a found family. He learned sacrifice by watching his friends risk everything for each other. 7 years of what seemed like meaningless dead-end park work was actually preparing the Chosen One to break a 14 billion year cycle. The groundskeepers were literally training the universe's savior without knowing it. Mordecai realizes they can change the outcome by setting traps for Anti-Pops. The tapestries show every battle starts in the Colosseum with predictable positioning. If they know where Anti-Pops will appear, they can ambush him before the fight begins. The crew spends hours digging pits, sharpening spikes, building catapults, and hiding explosives. They rig the entire battlefield. Pops hesitates because sneak attacks don't seem sporting, but Eileen convinces him that everyone and everything they love is on the line. Anti-Pops arrives and immediately trips the first trap. Spike plates crush him. Flaming arrows hit him. Catapult rocks surround him. A missile explodes. The park dome fires lasers from above. Pops drops a train on top of the wreckage. Everyone celebrates thinking they won without the universe resetting. Then Anti-Pops floats out from behind the destruction laughing. Nothing hurt him. He proposes a deal: he and Pops fight one-on-one. If Pops knocks him down, the universe is safe, but if Anti-Pops wins, he destroys everything. Pops accepts. The brothers fight using telekinesis to throw rubble and trains at each other. Pops eventually knocks Anti-Pops over. The crew celebrates, but Anti-Pops reveals the deal meant nothing. He orders his bounty hunters to fire on everyone. A villain named Streaming shows up with his own army wanting revenge from an earlier conflict. The battle becomes massive, with allies arriving to help HD DVD and Blu-ray. The Baby Ducks, Death, Carter and Briggs, Gary, and the Guardians of Eternal Youth, Party Horse. They all merge into a giant combined form called Hyperduck to fight Streaming, while the bounty hunters attack from above. Anti-Pops grows into his Titan form, a massive dark version of Pops the size of a building. He fires an erasing beam that deletes anything it touches from existence. The beam hits the Lollyland residents, who immediately disappear. It erases the Guardian of Lollyland. Muscleman jumps off her shoulder as she vanishes but can't run fast enough with his weight. The erasing beam reaches him, and High Five Ghost. Pops fires a protection beam, trying to save them, but Anti-Pops is too powerful. Muscleman's last words are completing his signature joke about someone who grows really big to show dominance, but is actually small, deep down his mom. He and High Five Ghost high-five one final time before getting erased from existence. Everyone screams in horror. Pops emerges as his own Titan form to fight his brother, but Anti-Pops keeps erasing people. Chance Sureshot, Toothpick Sally, and Recap Robot disappear. The Guardians of Eternal Youth, Gary, Death, Carter and Briggs, and Party Horse all get erased. The beam reaches Hyperduck, destroying Skips and Eileen first, then Benson. All of Pop's found family dies in front of him. Mordecai and Rigby fly away from Lolaland, in their ships mourning everyone they lost. Anti-Pops stops his beam and flies toward Pops. Both brothers close their fists and boost toward each other. Their colliding fists will reset the universe just like the tapestries showed. Mordecai realizes what's about to happen and tries to fly between them to stop it. They fire lasers at Anti-Pop's fist, but nothing works. Mordecai wants to fly directly between the collision. Rigby presses the eject button, but it malfunctions. The brothers' fists collide with Mordecai and Rigby caught between them. The two best friends get erased from existence, and the universe resets. The third act opens exactly like the very first episode of the series. Mordecai and Rigby are wrestling with a doll in their room. Everything plays out identically until Rigby hits the wall and suddenly experiences déjà vu. He remembers this happened before. He has flashbacks to major events from the show. Mordecai thinks Rigby hit his head too hard, but Rigby insists they've done this before and won't get fired for breaking the wall. He runs outside and digs up a Blu-ray box set that documents the next 6 years of their lives, including when the universe got destroyed. Mordecai touches the box and remembers everything too. They notice white silhouettes where Benson and Pops should be for their first appearances. Something went wrong with the reset. They used the power from the very first episode to travel to the end of the universe. Pops and Anti-Pops are still fighting. Mordecai and Rigby appear between them, announcing they're not dead after all. Anti-Pops tries to erase them, but they shield themselves with the power. It shatters, and they fall to what's left of Lollyland. Anti-Pops blasts the planet, destroying it. The shockwave sends Pops through a black hole into the original student film that inspired Regular Show. Pops sees his naive counterpart and realizes he's watching his own origin. He flies back through the black hole and sees Anti-Pops erasing everything while laughing. The fabric of reality unravels. They fall through storyboards and sticky note sketches. Anti-Pops prepares to destroy Mordecai and Rigby. Pops remembers the seer telling him that sometimes doing something different makes all the difference. He remembers his own words about resolving things with his brother. He remembers Anti-Pops rejecting a hug in an earlier episode. Pops realizes violence will never break the cycle. He teleports to save both Mordecai and Rigby, then faces his brother alone. Pops spreads his arms and floats toward Anti-Pops to hug him. Anti-Pops shrinks back to normal size as positive feelings overwhelm him. He warns Pops that the moment he lets go, he'll blast him into nothing. Pops says he knows, so he's not letting go. Anti-Pops realizes they're floating toward the sun. He screams that Pops will kill them both. Mordecai and Rigby beg Pops not to do it. Pops telepathically connects with them for a final goodbye. He tells them not to worry, because this is a happy ending. He asks them to take care of each other. Anti-Pops' negativity drains away as they approach the sun. He realizes all the damage he caused and wishes he could take it back. Pops tells him he can try. Together, they share a genuine hug as brothers finally at peace. Pop's hat disintegrates off his head. They fly into the sun and both die. This sacrifice revives everyone. Anti-Pops erased. The universe returns to its regular state. Mordecai jokes about wanting to come back as a dolphin. Rigby starts listing animals he wants to be, but his sentence cuts off as reality stabilizes. The epilogue shows the aftermath of Pops' sacrifice. Margaret reports on the news that the Park Dome has finally returned to Earth after 3 years in space. The entire crew exits, except Pops. They're celebrated by massive crowds. Everyone reunites with loved ones. Mordecai's parents kiss him. Rigby's dad hugs him and proudly points at his son to the crowd. Starla introduces Muscle Man to their 3-year-old daughter she had while he was gone. Muscle Man cries tears of joy holding her. Skips hugs Tecmo. High Five Ghost spins Celia around. Benson reunites with his cat, Applesauce. Rigby dips and kisses Eileen. Mr. Maillard looks at the sky, crying for his son. A statue memorial for Pops is erected at the park with a plaque that reads, "He chased butterflies, loved to laugh, saved the universe, and was their friend." Sometime after the funeral, Mordecai and Rigby both quit their jobs at the park after 6 years. Mordecai hugs Rigby and Eileen before they drive separate directions. Mordecai becomes an artist with paintings of Margaret, CJ, and his friendship with Rigby visible in his studio. Rigby plays video games with his young daughter while Eileen brings their infant and sandwiches. Benson grows gray hair and stays park manager with new employees, including a zebra, hedgehog, and tree. Muscle Man and Starla have 6 total children. Skips continues working at the park, drinking coffee. High Five Ghost and Celia become DJs in Prague. Years later, Mordecai bumps into a Batwoman artist named Steph at a convention. They gaze into each other's eyes. 25 years after the final battle, the park holds a reunion. Muscle Man chases his grandchildren. Benson has a ponytail and admires cats with Pam. Mordecai and Steph have 3 teenage kids. Rigby and Eileen's daughters help break open a Pops piñata. Mr. Maillard's statue stands next to Pops's, confirming he also passed away. Everyone gathers for a reunion photo. That night, Mordecai and Rigby sit on the house steps, drinking sodas, reminiscing. Rigby can't believe it's been 25 years. Mordecai wishes Pops could have seen this. Rigby says if it wasn't for Pops, they wouldn't have any of this. They wonder if their old video games are still in the shed and decide to check for old time's sake. They do their signature "ooh" catchphrase and laugh about still doing it after all these years. They walk off as the camera zooms out, showing the house. The screen turns to static, revealing a TV in heaven surrounded by butterflies. A VHS tape labeled "Regular Show" ejects from the deck. Pop's voice says one final time, "Jolly good show." The series reveals that 7 years of seemingly pointless supernatural disasters at a municipal park were actually cosmic preparation for saving all of existence. Groundskeepers became universe savers because they taught the Chosen One what truly mattered. Pops broke a 14 billion year cycle not through violence but through love learned from his found family. The park gave everyone second chances, personal growth, and friendships that lasted beyond death. Mordecai and Rigby's dead-end jobs became the most important work in history. Their lazy afternoons playing video games taught Pops about joy. Their ridiculous battles against demons and wizards taught him about courage. Their loyalty to each other despite constant dysfunction taught him about unconditional love. The park's legacy is that ordinary people accomplished extraordinary things by choosing each other every single day for 7 years. New groundskeepers now work at the park, facing their own supernatural chaos. The cycle continues, but the original crew changed everything forever by proving that friendship matters more than fate, love defeats evil, and sometimes the best way to save existence is to hug your brother and refuse to let go. Part 11. Regular Show's Cultural Impact. Regular Show aired from 2010 to 2017, which means it ran during a specific cultural moment when millennials were entering the workforce during a recession and discovering that adult life looked nothing like what they'd been promised. The show captured something real about being in your 20s, working a job that doesn't matter while trying to figure out who you are. That's why it connected with audiences beyond just being a funny cartoon with supernatural elements. People saw themselves in Mordecai and Rigby's dynamic, the fear of being left behind, the pressure to have everything figured out, the comfort of having one person who gets you even when everything else is falling apart. The "Ugh" catchphrase became a universal reaction to literally anything. Muscle Man's "You know who else?" format turned into an endless meme template. Rigby's screams became shorthand for expressing anxiety about everything from work deadlines to existential dread. The show's humor translated perfectly to internet culture because it was already operating on that wavelength. It understood that sometimes the best response to life's absurdity is just to lean into it and make it even more absurd. The park crew dealt with supernatural chaos the same way people dealt with entry-level job dysfunction, by joking about it with co-workers and somehow making it through another day. Regular Show influenced an entire generation of animated television by proving you could tell adult stories in a kids' show format without being condescending to either audience. Adventure Time was already pushing boundaries, but Regular Show normalized workplace dysfunction, romantic fumbling, and quarter-life crisis as viable cartoon subject matter. Shows like Steven Universe, Gravity Falls, and later Close Enough followed this template of using fantasy elements to explore genuine human struggles. The serialized storytelling approach, where character development mattered across seasons, became standard for Cartoon Network programming. Regular Show demonstrated that you could have standalone episodes with supernatural threats while building long-term relationship arcs that paid off years later. Mordecai's romantic disasters were genuine character flaws that he had to overcome through actual growth. Rigby's insecurity about his brother Don wasn't resolved in one episode. It took 6 seasons and earning a high school diploma to reach catharsis. The show proved animated comedy could handle emotional weight without losing its sense of humor. It also established that workplace settings could be fantastical. You didn't need to save the world from your house or go on epic quests. You could summon demons while trying to avoid work at a municipal park. The mundane became a valid backdrop for cosmic stakes. The show became a generational touchstone, specifically because it reflected what being 23 actually felt like in 2010. Mordecai and Rigby weren't aspirational heroes or role models. They were slackers working dead-end jobs who sometimes saved the universe by accident. That resonated with millennials, entering a workforce that told them their degrees meant nothing and their ambitions were unrealistic. The anxiety about being stuck in the same place while everyone else moved forward was everyone's problem. The fear that you'd peaked in college and everything afterward would be disappointment was a cultural moment. Regular Show portrayed quarter-life crisis before that term became common. It showed dead-end job anxiety as a genuine threat rather than a temporary setback. Characters didn't magically get better careers, they grew into the people they needed to be while staying in the same place. The park represented every retail job, food service position, and entry-level role where people felt trapped. The supernatural chaos represented how overwhelming normal adult responsibilities feel when you're not prepared for them. Fixing a broken fountain becomes summoning a demon because that's how dramatic every small task feels when you have no idea what you're doing. Regular Show introduced an entire generation of young viewers to 1,980 seconds music by making it cool again. Kids who grew up watching the show discovered bands like The Replacements, songs like Here Comes a Regular that became synonymous with the series' emotional moments. The show's use of licensed music was cultural education. Synthwave and indie rock became the show's sonic signature. Mark Mothersbaugh's original compositions, combined with carefully selected 80 seconds tracks, created a specific audio identity that influenced how people thought about animation soundtracks. The music wasn't background noise, it was emotional punctuation. Here Comes a Regular, playing during Rigby's graduation montage, elevated the sequence from good to iconic. David Bowie's Heroes, closing out the series finale, made Pops' sacrifice feel earned. The show proved animated comedies could use music as powerfully as any prestige drama. It also demonstrated that soundtracks could serve as cultural artifacts, introducing younger audiences to older music while making it feel contemporary rather than dated. Regular Show resonated with minimum wage workers because it validated their experiences without romanticizing them. Benson wasn't a cartoon villain, he was every frustrated manager trying to keep operations running with employees who didn't care. His anger came from real places. His breakdown when fired in Benson Be Gone showed what happens when your job becomes your entire identity. That hit different for people who defined themselves by their work. Mordecai and Rigby weren't lovable slackers. They were genuinely bad employees who cost their workplace money through constant disasters. But the show also acknowledged they stayed because they had nowhere else to go. Their friendship made the job tolerable, The found family dynamic with Skips, Muscle Man, High Five Ghost, and Pops transformed workplace dysfunction into something meaningful. People watching recognized their own office dynamics, their own frustrating coworkers who became real friends, their own managers who meant well despite constant yelling. The park validated that finding family and coworkers can matter more than career advancement. Sometimes surviving another day at a job you hate with people you love is enough. The show's core message was that growth is possible at any point, regardless of where you start. Rigby graduates high school at 23, proving education timelines don't define worth. Mordecai learns to commit after years of romantic disasters, showing people can change harmful patterns. Skips accepts help after 2 centuries of isolation, demonstrating it's never too late to be vulnerable. The park taught audiences that ordinary people can accomplish extraordinary things when they support each other. Friendship matters more than success because success is temporary, but real connections last. Love literally defeats evil in the finale, not metaphorically, not symbolically, but actually. Pops breaks a 14 billion-year cycle by hugging his brother instead of fighting him. The show's thesis was that choosing compassion over violence, connection over isolation, and growth over stagnation can change everything. Even slackers working dead-end jobs at municipal parks can save the entire universe if they care about each other enough to keep trying. Regular Show endures because it was honest about 20s struggles without being cynical. The show acknowledged that being young and directionless is genuinely hard while maintaining hope that things can improve. It didn't talk down to its audience by pretending life gets easier or that following your dreams guarantees success. Instead, it showed people muddling through and finding meaning in small moments. The emotional beats felt earned because they were built on 7 years of character development. Muscle Man's death carried weight because we watched him grow from annoying prankster to devoted father. Pop's sacrifice mattered because we spent seasons understanding his childlike nature was preparation for cosmic destiny. The show balanced comedy and heart perfectly. It could make you laugh at Rigby screaming while making you cry watching him graduate. That tonal balance is why people kept coming back. The park's final lesson was that where you work doesn't define who you are, but who you work with changes everything. Mordecai and Rigby started as slackers, avoiding responsibilities, and ended as universe savers who earned their redemption. The transformation came from showing up every day and choosing to be better. The park gave them space to grow at their own pace. Their co-workers became family, not through dramatic declarations, but through consistent presence. Growth happened through accumulated small choices rather than single grand gestures. The show proved that even slackers can save the universe when they have people worth saving it for. Regular Show's legacy is demonstrating that temporary jobs with the right people matter more than permanent careers with the wrong ones. That growing up means becoming who you need to be rather than who others expect. And that sometimes the best way to save existence is refusing to let go of the people you love, even when it costs you everything. That's it for today. If you want more videos like these, subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one.